Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Lunenburg Select Board. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live over the Lunenburg Public Access channel on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Public Access YouTube channel after the meeting. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Some items listed may be discussed and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. I will ask for all to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do we have any public comments tonight from the board?
I have none.
Just one, Mr. Chair. I want to announce we don't get a lot of openings for artists, but there is one at the Fitchburg Art Museum. I will just read from their mailer that Lunenburg artist Bridie Woleko creates handcrafted mixed media collages and objects that create dreamlike images informed by her interests in myth, magic, horror, popular culture, surrealism, architecture, and nature. Hypnagogia, which is the name of her show, is the transitional state of consciousness between wakefulness and sleep. During hypnagogia, many people can experience involuntary and vividly imagined experiences. Bridie Woleko is getting this one-person show at the Fitchburg Art Museum because she was the first prize winner in last year's 85th Regional Exhibition of Art and Craft. So I just wanted to celebrate a local artist having a one-person show at the Fitchburg Art Museum that will be opening June 25th and running through September 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple. So just a couple comments tonight. First, I want to acknowledge that the Memorial Day program that we had, I thought went very well. I want to extend really a thank you to all those who are involved in the committee and helping that program come about. It's really, I think, one of the best attended programs that we do every year. And we also had General Nori, who came from the Pentagon and was a guest speaker for the town. It really was, I thought, a really moving speech, as well as our own Selectman Alonzo also provided some closing words and remarks, and I also thought that was really well worded for the occasion. I also want to acknowledge that there was an award ceremony that Mr. Alonzo attended in his capacity as the former chair for the select board with the students, and that also went very well. And that graduation this past Saturday was also really exciting. I thought it was a really exciting time for those of us who were able to be there. And I just want to note that three members of the board had children graduate this year. So congratulations to you guys and your families. Thank you. And the last note is I was invited to attend the Kushmerik Connection, which is Representative Kushmerik has a monthly program, and I attended that on Monday. It was a 15-minute segment, and that should air on Lunenburg Public Access Television and Fitchburg Public Access Television. Just a little kind of highlight about the select board and you know what we're trying to get done here. Do we have any announcements tonight?
There are no announcements.
All right, I think I had one somewhere. Here we go. All right, so this is an announcement to all the board and committee members that we, just to remind you that we have the volunteer appreciation reception hosted by the select board this Thursday, June the 16th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. Next Thursday, thank you. Next Thursday, June 16th, 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the Eagle House Community Center, and that's at 25 Memorial Drive. So please be sure to RSVP to Elaine Peterson by 4 p.m. on June the 9th, so that way we can plan the refreshments accordingly. And again, this is to all board and committee members throughout the town, and that's next Thursday from 5:30 to 7, and it's a volunteer appreciation event. And I do not ask for public comments from the public, but I will go back to that. So are there any public comments from the public this evening? Yes. And as you come forward, please be sure to state your name and address.
My name's Paul Luria, and I live at 63 Pratt Street in Lunenburg. And this is my wife, Paula, who lives there too. And I'm going to read, I wrote out what I want to read. I don't want to ramble or digress. Okay, so we're having an addition put on our home. It was discovered that the wiring for our septic system was not, as code requires, buried at least 18 inches below grade, but 7 or 8 inches below grade. This is going to necessitate some rerouting of wiring at a cost to us. But it's even more, it's particularly disturbing in that Paula had dug there and hit, it's not a pipe, it's plastic cover, hit the plastic cover, and in the words of our contractor, could have been electrocuted. All right, so I want to say that for the most part, the great most part, everyone I've spoken to for the town has been very helpful. Unfortunately, at this point, nothing's resolved. So on May 23rd, Paula called a contractor who put in the septic system, and he told her it was not his problem, it was 16 years ago. Excuse me. Ed Farrell, our contractor, went to the building department and spoke with Lisa and Case. They didn't know if there was a separate electrical permit pulled at the time of the septic installation. I went and spoke to Lisa on May 24th and was referred to the Board of Health and spoke to Andrea, who did not know if a septic requires a separate electrical permit and inspection, and suggested I come back on Wednesday, May 25th, and speak to Jim, the Board of Health inspector. Paula and I came back on, we're up to Wednesday, and Jim didn't know if a separate electric permit had to be pulled. So we were referred back to Lisa, who said she would check the records upstairs. She called the next day and said that the records in that building only went back to 2013, and that we would have to talk to the town clerk at Town Hall. Ellen, the assistant town clerk, said that we would have to pay to have someone go through the records. So here's my questions, the issues. It's 5 parts. Was a separate electrical permit required? Was it pulled? Was a separate electrical inspection required? Was it done? And did it pass? And that's where we are now. And it's gotten a little frustrating. If, there's a danger factor, but if the contractor just come out and move the electrical, it'd be fine. But, it raises all kinds of questions. The code, my understanding is the 18-inch code, for good reason, goes back before this septic was put in. And interestingly enough, I was talking to a cousin of mine who lives in New York City and Long Island. He's an architect. And he said, well, Paula couldn't hurt herself. There's a steel casing around the electricity. And I said, well, no, there isn't. That's not the way we do it here. So that's my situation.
For clarification, the line that you're talking about, is this on your property, coming from your panel to something, or coming from the road to your house?
No, coming from our panel to the septic system to run the pump.
Okay.
No, nothing to do with the street.
Yeah. So I think we're a little limited in what we can do to resolve this concern, but I will refer you over to the town manager's office. Heather, is this something that you can help them navigate through?
Yes,
Elaine?
those records are available.
Okay. So the town clerk is an administrative role, but it is an elected position that is not answer to us. But I have found Kathy to be, my opinion, really easy to work with and very by the book. So I would just encourage that the town manager's office, select board office, will reach back out to you guys. Would you mind just leaving your contact information with us tonight? And then
No,
you'll get
not at all.
communication, and that way they can help navigate this for you.
You want it now?
Sure, if you want to write it down on that.
Oh, sure.
You can just write it on your letter.
Yeah, if you don't mind giving that.
Okay?
You can have the letter.
I think we all understand that sometimes government can be a little challenging, especially when you have a problem and you don't know exactly where to go, that it can feel like it's a runaround, but.
No, I know. I'm not calling it a runaround. at this point. It's, as Andrea and the Board of Health said, she never thought of it before. I mean, I have no idea. It seems to me that there would be a separate electrical permit, because the inspection for the actual septic is, you know, is more a health issue.
Yeah, and just to add, if that was 2013, the code has changed significantly from
Yeah,
then to now, so.
I like to put little pictures of it.
Thank you.
There's a picture of the toilet on it.
Well, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul. All right, thank you so much. Do we have any additional public comments in the room tonight? All right, seeing none, we have 2 public comments on Zoom. Matt. Matt
Nazarenko.
Nazarenko.
If you have 2 devices going in the same household, that's going to give you that
That feedback.
feedback.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
Good evening.
Later tonight, this board will review 5 individuals for the appointment to the Conservation Commission. The Select Board is the only oversight of this commission. The Conservation Commission consists of selfless volunteers who are public officials tasked with deciding affairs of the town according to established bylaws. Our public officials are obligated to carry out the wishes of the public or wishes of a vote of their subcommittee without emotion or prejudice, adhering to bylaws and timelines. I have a case that went before the Conservation Commission where a member up for reappointment tonight has acted in a petty and petulant manner by refusing to fall in line with the quantum of votes of the Conservation Commission within a timeline established in our bylaws. This individual did such knowing this would cause at minimum delays and at maximum further financial costs along with significant delays. If a member of any public committee is not willing to abide by the bylaws set forth and act within the quantum of votes established by that committee, they have no place to serve on such a committee. As a resident, I strongly oppose Jack Rabbit for appointment to the Conservation Commission. With respect to my individual item, I would like to thank you, Mr. Chair, Jeffries, Town Manager Lemieux, and our new conservation agent, Nadia Madden, for your assistance and prompt follow-up in my matter. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Matt. Do we have any additional public comments tonight? I think there was one from a phone number that's on Zoom.
I've asked them to unmute, but.
Okay. Yes. And to the phone number with their hand raised, are you able to hear us okay?
Yes, I am.
All right, you're on the floor. You can go ahead and begin your public comment.
Hi, this is Bill Tyler, 5 Graham Street. I'm speaking tonight as the curator of the Lunenburg Historical Society.
Okay.
I have a couple of announcements I'd like to make if I might.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Mr. Tyler.
The Historical Society has decided to expand our open hours to include Sunday mornings from 10 a.m. till noon, beginning on June 12th and running until September 25th, which coincides with the farmers market. We'll be staffed and tours will be available. We'll have available our usual items for purchase, such as Heritage of Turkey Hills, otherwise known as the Red Book, Images of America, a pictorial history of Lunenburg, and our newest item, Turkey Hills coffee mugs.
Okay.
We're also excited to announce that we'll be raffling off an 8-foot-long bench from Whalen Park that was used in the Midway Theater. Tickets will be available starting on Sunday, June 12th, until the winning ticket is drawn at noon on September 25th. Tickets will be also available during our normal Wednesday open hours. Tickets will be priced at $5 each, or 3 for $10. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler. And do we have any additional public comments this evening? No? All right. So one of the things on the agenda, it's a new item, but it really is, I think, a business practice that we've been having for a while. I think it's just formalizing it, what we're already doing. But just as Mr. Tyler tonight provided some communications from another board, that I just want to make it clear that all boards and communities and committees in town are always welcome to come before the select board and provide us with any kind of communications or announcements, such as what Mr. Tyler did. I think it's important that we maintain and improve collaboration, and we understand that this meeting probably gets a little bit more visibility than many others. So we just want to make sure that all members, all the volunteers in town are aware that this is also a good forum to share the good news around town. And with that, we have appointments this evening, kind of on time. First appointment at 7:15, a poll petition hearing from Unitil for 65 Watt Street, Plan 973L.
Good evening. John Kimball. Excuse me, I'm representing Unitil this evening.
Good evening, John.
So this is going to be for a single-family home. The reason we need to move a pole or put a new pole in is because of property lines. Where pole 3 is indicated on the map, we would end up having to cross someone else's property in order to serve the new customer. So that's why we're proposing at 2A right on the edge of the property.
Okay.
Do you want to read the public?
Yeah. So I was remiss in not reading the public hearing announcement, so let me see where that's at. Where is the, you know what the verbiage is for it?
That should be the notice to the butters.
Read the notice.
Yep.
So in conformity with the requirements of Section 22 of Chapter 166 of the Mass General Laws, you are hereby, this is the notice of butters, you're hereby notified that the public hearing will be held at Town Hall, 17 Main Street, second floor, in the Joseph F. Bellata Meeting Room here in Lunenburg on Tuesday, June the 7th at 7:15 p.m. Upon petition of Unitil Fitchburg Gas and Electric for permission to erect or construct and a location for a line of wires, poles, and such other fixtures as may be necessary to sustain or protect the wires of the line for the transmission of electricity upon, along, across, or under the following public ways of said town: 65 Watt Street, proposed new pole number 2A, approximately 1,213 feet east of Page Street and 368 feet west of Flat Hill Road, as shown on Plan 973-L, dated April the 14th, 2022. And with that, the public hearing is now open. And John, as the representative from Unitil, you're presenting this plan before us tonight. And as you stated, the rationale is because of property lines.
Correct.
Here. All right. And I want to open up to the board for any questions or comments. Ms. Roca?
No, I have none.
Mr. Dwyer?
I have none.
Mr. Franco?
None.
Mr. Alonso?
Also have none.
And none for me. I think this is about as straightforward as these come.
And there is no anchoring. Otherwise, from our last petition, I would have indicated that.
I appreciate the notes I appreciate the notes that you provided for us on the map that has the driveways, all the things that we constantly, I think, ask for. Do we have any abutters here in attendance tonight who'd like to comment on this proposal? Any in person or on Zoom? And seeing none, is there a motion on the matter before us?
I move to approve the petition for the proposed new pole 2A in the location previously recited and as recited in the petition for the erection of the new pole.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second for the poll petition. Are there any additional points of discussion this evening?
No.
All right, as many as are in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And that was an aye for myself as well, so you're approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
You too.
All right. We have another appointment tonight for 7:25 with Nuwoco request for flag raising. Do we have anyone from Nuwoco in attendance with us this evening, in person or on Zoom? Seeing none. So we'll have to, I did reach out to this organization. I received a communication, the town manager's office did, and I also did a few weeks ago. I did reach out just to get some follow-up leading up to tonight. I didn't get a response after a couple of tries, and so I wasn't sure if someone was going to be here this evening. I am aware that the leader of Nuwoco has been recovering with illness, so that may contribute to why they're not here this evening. So we can just reschedule this for another date.
Mr. Chair, just a small point of order. The agenda does indicate that meeting is supposed to start, or appointment is supposed to start at 7:25. Do we allow the opportunity for them to arrive?
We can come back to it at 7:25. Do we have a 7:35, which is a road race with Betsy, I'm not going to say this last name correctly,
Danielle.
Danielle. Is Betsy in attendance yet with us this evening? No? Okay, so we'll come back to the 7:35. All right, interviews, appointments, reappointments.
Is she on Zoom right up there?
Is that the?
That's her, that's her.
You're waving at us, so we'll hold off and wait a little bit here. So if you can unmute yourself. There we go.
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for entertaining us tonight. I first want to thank Heather so much because she really expedited us being before you tonight. So thank you, Heather, and thank you for entertaining our request tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if you wouldn't mind just saying a few words about what exactly it is that you're asking for, asking of the select board for the 5K road race on June the 18th.
So we're organizing a fundraiser for a friend of ours, Mike Spare. He is a personal trainer at Global Fitness. He's also a track coach for the Lunenburg High School track team. He was recently diagnosed with a large B cell lymphoma, and he has a wife and 2 young children. And just to support the family and to help support them to get through this courageous fight, we wanted to do a fundraiser for him. So we decided, I've been at many of the 5Ks that OTR, well, On the Rocks or Embers has put on before, so they actually have an established route. This is not a timed race. We've made it something to say to people, you know, if you want to come and go for a walk or go for a run or just come by and support Mike, just like a 10 to 2 kind of event. We're going to get pizzas from Embers, and we're gonna have raffles, just try to make a little bit of money for this poor family that's really struggling through this horrible time. So, like I said, it's 10 to 2. It's not a formal race. It is just a fun, come by and enjoy Lake Whalen that we all know and love. So the race goes like from On the Rocks, which is Lake Ave. It takes a right on Prospect Street, goes a little further down, a right on Cross Street, right on Pine Grove Road, and then it kind of circles back. So you go left on Cross Street, left on Prospect, and then left again on Lake Ave. And we're going to have, you know, like raffle baskets that they can, you know, purchase tickets for, just to make some money for this this family during this very courageous struggle that he's going through.
And you're Betsy?
Yes, I'm Betsy Dagnall, yes.
All right. Well, Betsy, thank you for presenting this. This certainly, you know, I will open to Heather Soroka with any questions or comments.
I just have a question. Are you going to charge for the road race to
No.
raise money? You're not charging for the road race?
Well, there's a registration fee.
Yeah, to raise money,
so-
right? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
and we also have a non-disclosure form that we're going to have them sign, so they can either register for the race or it's like I said, again, it's not going to be timed. They can either register for the race, or they could just like give a monetary donation, or we've had people bringing gift cards to do for raffles, or if they want to just come and enjoy the day.
And how are you advertising it?
We have flyers that we've put up at Embers and at OTR. We've handed them out to other people. We've done it on Instagram. And then just kind of word of mouth. We also, at Global Fitness, we have given them flyers because, as I said, he's been there for years as a personal trainer. So there are many, obviously it's one of the highly populated gyms in our area. So many people know Mike, and he was at the Fitchburg gym, and now then he was at the Leominster one. So many people know him there. So we've had the flyers there. Excuse me. Oh, he's part of the McAuliffe family. Yeah. So I think just word of mouth has been a big thing, but just like local places with flyers, nothing too extravagant. I think Global itself, I'm hoping will have a good response because he's been there for so many years, and he's just one of the nicest guys. And I don't know if any of your members would know him from the Lunenburg track team.
Yes,
but
I do. Yes.
He's just a solid, like great guy. He's a young wife. They got a child 7 and a child 4. Great kids. It's just a tragic thing that's happened here, and we just want to give them some relief, because I think right now he's in a very advanced treatment program. It's very aggressive, and I'm not sure how insurance is not responding well to them, as we all know how insurance companies can be. So they're getting like some really bad feedback from their insurance company, but they're pushing forward just to make him better. So they're going to try to do what they can. So anything we can do to help them, just kind of bear that amount. Not that we're going to sustain anything from that, but it'll be at least a little bit that we can. And I also think just having him see the support of people, if you could see him when people come up to him and say, "I'm with you, buddy. He's just so grateful for everything that everybody offers."
Well, have you reached out to the school district and asked them to put it out on their email? Because he is a coach there, and I know that they were selling the Spare Strong shirts.
I believe that Amy, his wife, reached out to Kamar Tuzignot to have that related to the school. I'm not sure if Kamar has done that, but that was one of our avenues that we did seek.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Dwyer?
I have no comments.
Mr. Franco?
None. No comment.
One question, have you reached out, will this require a road closure? Have you reached out to the police and just the police chief, just to make sure that about the route and safety of people?
Chief Gamble actually gave me Heather's name, so that's why I went to Heather. I actually originally talked to Danny Bourgeois, who gave me Chief Gamble's name. There's really no, every time we've done this walk before with other times, there's really no road closure. It's like right on the edge of the lake, and then it goes up into the back road. So I don't think there's any road closures, but but Chief Gamble just said, just go to the board and make sure it's okay. I will reach out to him again when we get closer. I think right now we have 25 registries, and then we're thinking there's at least 20 more. So it's not going to be a huge event, but I will definitely reach back out to Chief Gamble and let him know more the number when we get closer to the date.
Okay, yeah, it's just a safety measure. I'd hate to have something happen, and I fully appreciate what you're doing, and I wish you the best of luck in the event and raising money.
Thank you so much.
Betsy, please first give my regards to Danny Bourgeois. I haven't talked to him in a long time.
Oh, he's so happy in retirement. I was actually a probation officer, so I've known Danny forever. So now that I've retired, we see each other out and we just kind of giggle and laugh at each other and say, "Oh, thank God we're out of that whole thing." But no, he looks great. He's doing things. He's really. I saw him maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he looks amazing.
Great. This really is a wonderful thing. There's a lot of people go through really sad, traumatic things in their lives and life-changing events. And, it really does require the community to come together to help people when they're in need. And so I personally really appreciate you stepping forward to really help out in this regard. So thank you for that. And I don't have any concerns or questions. Mr. Alonso asked the one that I had about coordination with the police chief. To the town manager, do you have any questions or?
Yes, just,
Additional comments?
Betsy, when we spoke, you said the time, it would be, I think, runners first or walkers first, so there'll be 2 rounds, right? So it won't be everyone at once?
Right, so, because I think, once the runners go, the walkers are gonna take a little bit longer, so it's just to break that up, but, yeah, and that, like I said, I don't think it's that too many people, so I think it'll be really doable, so.
Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion on the matter before us?
I would move that we approve the request for the 5K road race for June 18th, 10:30 a.m. At Lake Whalum, just with the approval of the consent of the police chief.
Second.
All right. Any additional points of discussion? All right, as many in favor of the motions, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And that was also an aye for myself. I need to get in the habit of saying aye. So the motion passes, and so certainly thank you for coming before us. And what are the next steps? Does she need to pick anything up from us?
Nope, there's nothing more from our office, and I think, Betsy, if you can just reach out to Chief Gamble, like you said, as it gets closer.
I will do that, and then I will, Heather, I will let you know what his response was as well.
Okay, great.
But thank you all so much, and thank you for saying that, us doing this is a great thing, but we're not doing half of what Mike is, so this is all about him. And, but thank you so much for your time, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And we are now past 7:25. Just want to see if we have any representatives from Nwoco present for the 7:25 appointment on Zoom. And seeing none. Okay. So next we have interviews, appointments, reappointments, and resignations. So we have a appointment to the Green Communities Committee from Chris Holden, 25 Upland Circle, for a term to expire 2024. Is Mr. Holden with us this evening? Present. Oh. Mr. Holden, if you wouldn't mind just coming forward for a moment. And you wouldn't mind introducing yourself. So we did have the chance to look over the materials that were provided, but just a brief statement about yourself and why you're interested in this appointment.
All right, my name's Chris Holden. I live at 25 Upland Ave in Lunenburg. Been a resident of town since the early or mid-90s. And let me see, we were at the town meeting just a while back and saw the opportunity there for the Green Committee, and thought it would be an interesting thing to be part of if my qualifications fit what they were looking for. So I spoke with Dave Blatt for a little while, and he suggested that I meet up here.
Excellent. All right. And Dave Blatt has the best energy in the world, by the way.
In any number of ways.
And I'll go down the line. Do we have any questions from the members of the board
No.
I have none.
or comments?
If I may have missed it, but did you put into the record a sort of a list of your qualifications or background on this, or can you
I did
provide those now?
not. I spoke with Dave Blatt, went over my background with him, and I didn't know how this transpired, and so I left it at that. I didn't know I was supposed to be entering anything anywhere.
Can you just sort of give us a little verbally?
I've been a builder, contractor, remodeler for decades. I've always been conscious of energy consumption of any structures that I was working on, trying to build anything that I was working on efficiently, and just with a low environmental impact, if at all possible, try to reduce the impact of the structures that I was working on. Since I would say 2014, I've been involved in energy efficiencies working with the Mass Save program. I've got residential energy auditor credentials, been through a lot of training for energy stuff. When I was speaking with Dave, he said they're working on a lighting project. I used to install commercial lighting as a salesperson that would go out and audit the properties anyway. I would specify the lighting and hire the contractors to come in there and do the work, and so this is all stuff that I've worked on in the past, and I'm still doing the same thing now with the community teamwork in Lowell, except it's not on the commercial end, this is on the residential end now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Full disclosure, I know Chris very well. He's a good friend. His background in construction, both residential and commercial, his background in energy and energy savings, his background in solar panels, among other things. I think he's perfectly suited for the job and would be a great addition to the Green Communities Committee.
Excellent. And all that's excellent background, Mr. Holden, so thank you so much for coming forward and putting yourself, making yourself available for the public good in this capacity. Certainly, I appreciate that, and I'm sure all of us, everyone at home does too. So is there a motion on the matter before us?
I would move to appoint Chris Holden to the Green Communities Committee, term to expire June 2024.
All right.
Second that.
It's a motion and a second to appoint Mr. Chris Holden to the Green Communities Task Force for term to expire 2024. Any other discussion on this matter?
No.
All right. All of us in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, no.
What's your vote, Mr. Chair?
My vote was aye.
Okay. I'm going to nudge you for the next few times, just so we know.
And so the motion passes, and you are appointed. So please be sure to go check in with the town clerk's office and downstairs and swear into the position.
Okay?
All right.
And when will that happen? What are good times to do that? Just whenever the clerk's window is open?
Yes.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. So in our current business, we also have annual appointments. I'm going to move those forward to this portion of the agenda. So every year, the Select Board has certain boards that we provide appointments to. The Agricultural Commission, this year, it's the Agricultural Commission. We have Architectural Preservation District Commission, the Conservation Commission, the Council of Aging, the Green Communities Committee. We also have the Historical Commission, the Personnel Committee, the Zoning Board of Appeals for members, and the Zoning Board of Appeals for associate members. So with us tonight, we have, let me just make sure I have, yep. So with us tonight, we have, of the positions that we have available, there are some competitive seats on the Conservation Commission. So the Conservation Commission has 3 openings and 5 members that are seeking appointment. So first, I would like to, all the members that are seeking to be appointed to a full term as a member are all either current members or current associate members of the commission. So I first want to thank all of you who've stepped up into this capacity to learn, for being willing to continue to be volunteers in the town, and then also for being willing to put yourself out there again to be in this capacity. So I want to remind all of you that we are going to do an interview process here tonight. We have read all of the written responses that were provided, and so what I'm going to ask is for a brief, impactful responses to the questions that are less than 1 minute, preferably. So we want to make sure we can get through as many of these as possible. And I would ask the members of the board to limit your questions to less than 3 or less, but also to ask the same questions to every member, so that way everyone has a fair opportunity. You certainly don't have to, you can change them up, but I would just ask that you consider trying to ask the same questions to everyone. So we will do this in the order in which it's on the agenda, and following all of the interviews, then we will discuss for a moment, and then we will begin a positive, affirmative appointment process. Unfortunately, when you have 5 people going for 3 positions, there will be 3 of you who will leave here tonight really, really excited, and 2 who will say next time. And so I encourage it to be a positive attitude. You know, we never like to see volunteers come forward that we have to turn away. But I would hope that those of you who are not appointed into a full capacity would remain or be in at least an associate capacity for the remainder of, for the next at least year or so, for the next open appointment process. Are there any questions from the board on how we're going to do this? All right. First, we have Mr. Richard Trimbley. So again, please, as you come forward, please state your name for the record as well as your address, and then your opening. I'm calling it an impactful statement. That's my nice way of saying, please be brief.
All right. My name is Richard Tremblay. I live at 386 Sunset Lane in Lunenburg. It's the first time coming before you asking for an appointment for anything. I'm very interested in Conservation Commission. I love everything with the outdoors. Heck, camping, hiking, backpacking, kayaking, swimming. I was a scoutmaster in town for several years. I worked with a lot of the younger scouts, taught them outdoor skills. I have a background in public safety, which is where I worked. I've been in town for 36 years, full-time. As you know, I'm a member or associate member of the Conservation Commission currently. I attend all the meetings. I go on to site walks when available. Been reviewing the bylaws for the town and the CMRs associated with it as well to try to increase my knowledge. I'm very interested, and if given an opportunity, I really think that I can be helpful for the commission. Short enough?
It's okay if you take more than me. To select Selectwoman Soroka.
So my question for you, you're currently an associate member, correct?
Yes, I am.
And how long have you been an
Probably
associate?
about 5 or 6 months I've
5 or
been
6 months.
attending the
And
meetings.
that was after you had worked on your home at Lake Shirley?
After I
Is
did
that,
what?
it worked on it? I thought that I read that in your bio. Or is that not true?
I don't understand the question. Please repeat it.
Did you have work done on your home at Lake Shirley?
Well, actually, I went before the commission
yeah,
prior
that's-
to my
right.
membership because I'm having a couple of retaining walls and some work
Okay.
done on my property.
And
But
that's what made you interested in the
Well, I've
commission?
been before them before to do minor things or whatnot, but yeah, I'm interested in, I mean, I live there, and I think it's important that we protect our natural resources and our wetlands, and you have to be sensitive to the people that live around them as well, and that's the delicate balance, I think, that the board tries to struggle to meet.
The other question I have was, if Zoom meetings were no longer available, would you be able to participate in person?
Yes. The only thing would be that in the fall, in the winter months, my wife and I do run away to Florida to hide from some of the cold weather. I'd be available remotely, of course, but outside of that, I have no problem attending site visits or coming to meetings in person.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Dwyer.
I have no questions.
Mr. Franco.
Yes, I can't ask this question of all candidates, but I will ask you, if you are not appointed to a full seat or full position tonight, would you be willing to remain as an associate?
I would want to talk with the committee chairperson before making a final decision, but I would be leaning towards staying as an associate member, yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Alonso.
What do you feel are since you're an associate member, you're probably, at least for the last 5 months, 6 months, as you said, up to date on some of the issues facing the Conservation Commission. What do you think are the most important issues that they are seeing the most frequent requests for that need addressing, other than the mundane request? I mean, is there anything outstanding to you that the Conservation Commission is facing that is you're seeing an inordinate amount of, or something that's not being addressed properly in your eyes? Not to demean what they're doing, but
Okay.
something that needs addressing.
Okay, right, because I don't have enough experience to say if you're addressing things properly or not. I think one of the key things that I'm seeing that the board is doing is they're actually following up on things that they're approving to make sure that that is the work that is being done. And if not, then of course they're calling in enforcement orders on that and asking the owner what happened here, why didn't we follow those rules? And I think that is a very important thing that is being done, because you just can't grant somebody an order of conditions and expect, okay, it'll be fine. I think we do have to follow up and look at a few of those things. But my experience with the board has been positive to this point. I get to view a lot of the documents prior to the meeting. I'm asking questions through the meeting, and I've gone to the site walks, so I actually can look and see what we're really talking about instead of just the pictures that are sent in. So I think that answers your question.
Yep,
Fair
yep,
point.
yep.
Okay.
One last thing. So as a board member, as a commission member, do you feel it's important that if a majority of the board makes a decision in a vote, that you would be able to support the final vote, even if you were in disagreement during the vote?
Well, that's a very difficult question, because I don't know what we're talking about, what the actual subject is. I mean, as you know, conservation has strict rules as far as a 30-foot no disturbance, a 50-foot no build type situation. And if all of a sudden the board is going to grant somebody to build a house within that area, I don't know if I could honestly. I'd have to talk to the members. I would have to talk to members and understand their rationale, their thought process, why. But if most of the board wanted to do it, I'd probably think that it was the right thing to do and it would be acceptable, as long as it can be justified as to why we're doing it. Because we do have the rules set forth by those town bylaws and the state CMRs as well. So we need to kind of operate within that and at least have rhyme or reason if we go into a gray area, I guess we'd say.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Trimley. Ms. Wilson, Mary Wilson.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Select Board.
Good evening. So please state your name and address and your interest and your impactful statement for why you're looking to.
Impactful, I hear you. My name is Mary Wilson. I live at 138 Whiting Street. I'm really interested in the Conservation Commission. I'm an avid outdoors woman. I am out on the trails all the time. I've done a lot of trail work over the years. I think last year, maybe 65 plus hours that were formally logged. This year, I worked with Bob Pease and then also with the local snowmobile club to put in apply for a mass trails grant that would benefit roughly 5 small projects across the town. I also organized the Earth Day event for the Lunenburg Conservation Commission this year that brought 146 volunteer hours back to benefit our properties. I'm a degreed engineer by background. I have a bachelor's in electrical engineering. I have been in industry 23 plus years. I currently hold the title of Director Hardware Development for a Fortune 500 company. My specific job role is to it's market access. I look at global technical regulations and apply interpretations, right? And then bring back strategies to the company to comply with these complex regulations. These regulations cover electromagnetic theory, RF regulations, product safety, dangerous goods, and several environmental regulations internationally that our company has to comply with in order to get access to markets around the globe. So the leverageable skill that I have is I already bring 23 years of experience in reading regulations, complex regulations, doing interpretations, and applying those to real-world situations for current compliance as well as ongoing compliance processes that ensure consistency. I'm really motivated to be a member of the commission. I don't know a ton about the laws right now. I've certainly read them, but I wouldn't consider myself an expert. I am looking forward to partnering even more closely with the Conservation Commission experts that we have and learning and being able to apply my skill set. I currently am an associate member as well.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you.
Ms. Selectwoman Soroka.
Okay, so I have to ask the same question, so.
You can add some variety
Okay,
too.
okay, but I think you had a graduate as well.
I did, yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Zoe, right?
Yes.
So you've been on, I thought I read April.
That's right.
Okay.
It's recent.
Yeah. And the other question I have is if Zoom was no longer available, would you be able to participate in person?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's all I have for.
Mr. Dwyer.
One thing that occurred to me is, and I didn't ask Mr. Tremblay, but Conservation Commission's one of our boards that has a significant time commitment. with site walks and then the meetings. It's one of our more rigorous boards. Have any qualms about meeting the requirements for attending site walks and the meetings on a regular basis?
Absolutely not. I look forward to it.
Thank you.
Mr. Franklin.
Same question that I asked Mr. Tremblay. If you are not appointed to full seat, would you be willing to remain as an associate?
Absolutely. It won't change my volunteerism at all.
Thank you.
So from your short time on the associate, but I'm assuming well, let me ask you first, have you followed it before becoming an associate member? Have you followed the Conservation Commission at all before becoming an associate member?
Yes, I did, actually.
Okay. So from your experiences, what are the most critical issues facing that commission in their work?
Well, so I certainly wouldn't consider myself an expert in being able to kind of interject what would be a better practice moving forward. I think, as with a lot of the town commissions, just visibility, right, and be able to articulate to the people that come before the board how the decisions really are consistent. I know, I hear anecdotally that there's inconsistency, and I think that's probably from a lack of understanding, right? And certainly, I think it's incumbent upon the board a little bit to help educate the community about the value add, and then also how the determinations really are consistent, so that people who are lay people and really don't know, who only intersect with the commission, once a year, once every 5 years, once every 10 years, maybe have an opportunity. You certainly can't make them understand, but certainly have an opportunity to understand a little bit better the complexity and the value that the expertise of the commissioners bring.
So if I didn't ask this of Mr. Tremblay because I didn't think of the question quickly enough, but if in the shortest possible way, can you explain what you believe to be the key objectives of the Conservation Commission?
Protect the wetlands and protect the natural habitat that we've been blessed with.
Okay. And lastly, as a member of a multi-body board like this one, you may be on there may be decisions made that you are in the minority. Would you be able to support the majority position going forward after those votes?
Absolutely. I believe it's important to have dialogue and dissent even, right? I think that's the reason why it's not a sole appointee and it's a commission with a multi-member. But once the decision's been made, I think it's important to rally as a team and be able to present a unified front to the community.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions. I'll make a comment, though. I think you are eminently qualified, Mary, for this position. I mean, I want to comment on, we received a letter, an email, and I just want to comment on it because it was really glowing about you, and there were a couple things there that I just want to highlight. So what was stated was, you mentioned tonight 146 hours for Earth Day. Every year I go...
You're going to make me blush.
Every day I get on my soapbox, and every year in April I get on my soapbox, I think, and start talking about storm drains and clean up on the side of the road. And, as a private citizen, for you really to kind of take that effort, initiate it, and then end up collecting 23 bags of trash, that really is amazing. And then the trail maintenance that you do for the Snow Rider Club, and then just generally keeping the trails up and running. I mean, it really is phenomenal that a private citizen, not even looking to be on a board, really just gives back. And I think that, your work experience, the way that you've presented information tonight, I think there's no question in my mind about your qualifications to serve in full capacity on the Conservation Commission. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bob Pease.
Show and tell.
Show and tell.
My name is Bob Pease. I live at 11 Wintergreen Court. I have a bachelor's degree in biology and a master's degree in environmental science or ecology. I was an Eagle Scout. I was the director of the nature area at the Lake of Isles Boy Scout Reservation for 7 years. I've been an avid mountain biker since I was 40, and I'm 73. I've been on the Conservation Commission for 6 years. I've been the chairman for the last 2. As chairman, I've had 2 main focuses. The first focus is to increase the amount of attention that the Conservation Commission gives to maintaining, improving, and promoting our conservation lands. It's difficult for the commission to do this. You have to take and you have to respond to the inland wetlands applications that come in over the transom, and you have timelines. It takes a lot of time. You know, anything you do to maintain and improve the conservation lands is over and above. And so I've focused on that as a mountain biker and as someone who uses our trails and is constantly bumping into Mary out in the woods. And so 3 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, I applied for a grant to improve our conservation lands. I've worked for the last 1.5 years with the Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission's GIS department to produce trail maps for all of our conservation lands. Then we took and we got multicolored trail markers to mark the different trails. So the different trails are marked with different colors. And the trail maps are color-coded so that the lines on the trail map correspond with the lines on the ground. And there's going to be one of these You Are Here trail maps at every trailhead in almost every trail intersection out there in the woods. So when you come to it, you'll be able to look at the map, look at the colors on the map, look at the colors on the trees, and be able to tell where you are and which direction you want to go. We also, as Mary said, we put up 6 kiosks. The Lunenburg Snow Riders in 2 nights built kiosks. They built the 6 kiosks over 2 nighs. Unbelievably, they installed all of them in 6 of them in 1 day. And then we put up, and then I put up all the stuff on them. Unfortunately, we're having trouble with vandalism, but that's a different story. And we also purchased 4 or 5 access gates that will allow regular safety vehicles and maintenance vehicles in, but it'll hopefully keep out the ATVs and stuff. And so that's been one of my focuses. The other focus is to try to make the experience for the applicant to make better. To try to make the commission more user-friendly. And so what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is to try to work with the applicant before they apply to make sure that everything's in their application so that they don't get there, we look at it, and we say, oh, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't do the other thing. Go back, do it again, and come back the next meeting. And then they come back the next meeting, and we go through that iteration again. I try to get rid of that, okay? I try to make sure that when we make a decision, it's based on the Inland Wetlands Act. We don't take and bring up something else, like safety. Safety is important, but it's not our job. That's somebody else's job. And so we shouldn't be making judgments on the applications based on safety. It's not fair to the applicant. And that we base our decisions on the facts that are presented at the commission, not something that we dreamed up. And so I think, I've tried hard to try and make the application process more user-friendly and to be fair, to the applicant. And I hope with the appointments that the board will make tonight that the Board of Selectmen will help with that. Thank you. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Pease. Ms. Roque. Selectwoman Roque.
Thank you for your service, Mr. Pease. I appreciate it because I do walk the trails on Holman. It's lovely. But my only question for you, and I think the answer is yes, is the Zoom meetings, if they were to discontinue, and I'm assuming they will at some point.
Well, I mean, we for the first 4 years I was on the commission, all the meetings were in person. So, the answer is yes. but I happen to think that Zoom actually increases participation. I mean, when we had the hunting debacle, we had one Zoom meeting where I believe we had like 75 people. We never had more than 30 people at any particular Conservation Commission meeting before that. So I'm a big fan of them because I think it helps increase participation and make it easier to participate. But yes, I would participate in person.
Mr. Dwyer?
Mr. Pease, while I was on the commission, you were one of the hardest working members, if not the hardest working member on the commission, and you've continued that and then some since you've become chair. Will you be able to continue to put that time and effort into the commission?
Yes. I mean, I had a small stroke back in March, and when that happened, I resigned from the Open Space Committee. But I'm not. My commitment to the Conservation Commission is not wavering.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Conservation Commission, one of the only boards or commissions more exciting than the Select Board. So I will ask, just to be fair to all applicants or for reappointment or appointment, if you were not to be reappointed, would you be willing to continue adding your voice in an associate capacity?
Probably not. I would probably try to rejoin the Open Space Committee the next time they had a an opening for an at-large member.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Mr. Alonso?
Or I might run for planning board. I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission in Connecticut for 6 years, although I don't really know why anyone would do that to themselves, so.
Mr. Chair, so first I want to comment that I'm sorry that my colleague to my left doesn't find our meetings exciting.
Oh, no,
But
no.
we'll have
I
a,
just
we'll have a
meant
different
that
discussion.
They are very exciting.
Oh, okay.
That's all
Oh,
I
I'm
meant.
sorry. No. So what do you obviously have had many years on the Conservation Commission, so what do you feel are the most critical things facing the Conservation Commission today?
I think we have to do more. We have a new conservation administrator now, and I'm excited about working with that new administrator to take and make it more self-explanatory about what you have to do to apply. What's the difference between an RDA and an NOI? I think the average person has no clue. I think if you go to our website, it's not self-evident. Since I've been even before I was chair, I've been working on the grant. The grant sucks my life away, and I haven't really had the time to put a lot of time into. I've made some improvements, but we need a lot more work in making the application process more self-explanatory and evident and easier.
Okay. As concisely as you can be, what do you feel is the true objective of the Conservation Commission?
Well, like the two things I said would be one is you have to enforce the Inland Wetlands Act. That's the principal thing that you're charged with. And the other thing, though, is that we own, the Conservation Commission owns all this land in town, and if we don't improve it and maintain it, nobody will. And it's an amazing treasure. I mean, there are places you can go out, and the large town forest is a great blue heron nest with 2 babies in it right now. You go places, you see beavers, you see, porcupines. It's just an amazing asset, and more people should know about it, and more people should use it.
Okay. And lastly, on those decisions that you find yourself in minority, do you have any problem supporting the decision of the majority?
I'll tell you an anecdote. When we had the issue about hunting, I was never in favor of firearm hunting, but I told the members who were in favor of firearm hunting that if they could find 4 votes, not including mine, I would support the end product. And so through a lot of that stuff, the public, I think, was under the impression that I supported firearm hunting because, you know, there was a time like when I voted to move the process along. And, you know, if we had voted on it that night, because at that point there were four members in charge in favor of firearm hunting, then I would have been voting for, you know, to allow firearm hunting. But I was adamantly opposed to firearm hunting. So the answer is absolutely yes, and I think I've shown that, you know, with my actions.
Thank you. I would say I want to thank Mr. Pease for his presentation here, and especially all the efforts in improving and getting the grants that he does. I know what grant writing is like, and I know the effort it takes, and so thank you for that, and putting all the efforts into improving the hiking trails and all the markings, among other things, for all the, as you said, a feather, you know, I like to walk the trails. Other colleagues here do as well. So I want to thank you for all those extra efforts and your leadership on the commission for these years.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a question, but I want to start with just a comment as well. So I also want to thank you, Mr. Pease, for the work that you do for our town. It really is selfless. I know it comes from a good place. And I like your style of leadership. I think it's similar. You know, I've personally have been in leadership positions most of my life, most of my adulthood. And I think that the style that works the best is when you can tap into the skills, experience of the people around you. I think that you clearly demonstrate ongoing commitment to doing that, and I think that's what makes committees work well, is when you can see that other people have something to offer and to try to really work to get that on the table. So thank you for all of that, sincerely. My questions tonight are going to be for the members seeking reappointment because it comes from the reappointment questionnaire. So the last question on the questionnaire for reappointment was a little bit different than the appointment request. Was what resources are currently not available that would help you accomplish the goals and mission of your committee or position? And your answer to this was provide an administrative clerk to handle some of the office functions now handled by the conservation administrator.
Thank you, Heather.
The commission has no budget for funds for the maintenance and improvement of conservation lands. The only reason we have been able to make progress in recent years in this area is because of the income provided by the harvesting of timber. If we stop harvesting timber, we will need a budget for maintaining conservation lands. I just want to give you an opportunity to expand upon that in any more detail if you so choose.
I think right now we're good, to be honest with you. I'm not going to be asking for a budget. I don't think it'd be appropriate. We're about to do another timber harvest on the Reno piece, which is at the corner of Northfield and Chase Road. There's a piece of conservation land there, which you can't get into now because it's got very thick invasive species growth. And so the commission is going to do a timber harvest there. And the landing zone for the timber harvest will be used as a parking lot. The skid trails will be left behind as trails, so it's a win-win because now we're going to get 29 grand for the lumber. And I think we're going to have enough, and we still have a substantial amount left from our last timber harvest. I'm not a big fan of timber harvests, but I think in this case, but it's true I would not have been able to apply for the grant if it wasn't for the money we got from the small town forest timber harvest. You know, and that provided the seed money, and now we have the seed money, and I think we can continue to apply for grants. Although I got to tell you, I'll never do another grant that requires as much volunteer time as this one, because this was just bananas. You know, I might apply for a grant where we ask Steve Powell to come in, or some contractor to come in, you know, and the Lunenburg Snow Riders built an amazing wildlife viewing platform in the Cowdery area that's accessed off the Townsend Harbor Road. You can't get to it now because the road is flooded by the beavers. And so I might do a grant, for instance, you know, where you would take and raise the entire road level bed by 2 feet, you know, and all we do is contribute the cash. You know, there's not a lot of volunteer time. You know, because typically the grants you got to, I think it's 20% or 10%. So you know, we would do the 20%. You know, the state would do the 80%. You know, contractor would do the job, and we're done, kind of thing. But I think for now, we're good. I mean, Nadia has some big ideas about, we should start a Trails Committee, because that's the structure they have in Groton, where she was chairman of the Conservation Commission for 3 years, so.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Pease, for that answer, and thank you for coming forward again tonight.
And sometime when you guys are all more settled in, I'd like to come back and do a presentation on our plans and improvements for all the strategic plan for the conservation lands.
Yeah, that'd be good. You're more than welcome to just reach out to me and let's get that scheduled.
Actually, I was going to reach out to Heather.
Yeah. And I had something,
Heather and I have already discussed it once, so.
it's something to add that you brought up about a summary for residents that going through the permitting process. Back in 2018, we did a permitting guidebook that's on the planning board's site. I just looked at it. It needs to be updated just with people, really, that have changed positions. But that provides good summary information for residents going through the permitting process. And it calls out specifically building department, planning department, conservation, all those different areas. So that's something Nadia might, and I can talk to her about it as well.
Thank you.
You're
All
welcome.
right, thank you. Mr. Rabbit. So please state your name, address, and your impactful.
What, no dissertations tonight? Come on. Well, my name's John Rabbit. I live at 314 Townsend Harbor Road, and I'm reapplying for the Conservation Commission position. I have been with the commission for 8 years now. Basically, I'm also on the Lunenburg Stormwater Committee as the representative from Conservation Commission, and my buddy Todd and I are having a great time every other one Thursday night a month. The commission's actually been, this particular commission, Stormwater Commission's been in 6 years in the works, and it's been evolving and nicely supported by Heather. Thank you so much for the guy. You've done a great job, and Adam, of course. Basically, this is a job. This is not a part-time activity. We're spending, anywhere from 7 to 11 at night. We do our site walks every other Saturday. Probably in the meetings and the site walks, I've probably been about 85% of them. We do additional works. Additionally, you do a lot of prep work before you walk into the meeting. You look at the drawings, try to figure out as much as you can. And what we're trying to do is figure out, how does this meet the laws that we've taken a vow we would support and protect? And essentially, I've even built a model that allows me to do a search. I've got all the wetland protection laws, all the 310s, everything that we've got. I even built a model that does a search and look for it in a MindJet mode. By the way, I've got a doctorate in quality systems management. I've taught college at the graduate level for 15 years, as well as working for a living in companies like, if you ever heard of Digital or maybe 3Com, I was the chief quality officer there. So what I like about this, and I love this job, but you know what the most rewarding part of it is? The site walks. You discover things. You see things that you wouldn't see in a flat piece of drawing. And so I do all the site works, and I urge all our members to do it. Essentially, okay.
Well, thank you, Mr. Rabbit.
Okay, and I also take a lot of classes. I've done the leaf pieces and the alpha, in terms of vegetation, the environments, animals, birds. The MAC conferences, have been going to that.
Well, Mr. Rabbit, I want to thank you for the introduction and open it to the board for some questions.
I went too long, excuse me. Heather, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank you for your service and your
Thank you,
volunteerism. And I think the question is the Zoom, and I'm assuming that your answer is yes.
Oh, would I?
Would you be able to participate if there were no Zoom
I've done
meetings?
it. Even when I've been out of the country, I've been at the meetings, as Todd would confirm. Yes, I plan on doing it. On vacations, I've had my wife Jane sitting out by the forest fire by herself while I attend the Conservation Commission meeting. So yeah, this is important stuff. You can't miss it.
Right.
Thank you. Hopefully, did I answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Dwyer.
Mr. Rabbit, you've hinted at it in your comments, is also in your letter to the board for reappointment. But will you be able to continue the time commitment that is demanded by the Conservation Commission?
Absolutely. In fact, even more. She's going to kill me if I say that. The reality is, yes, I've fully retired now, and I collected my last check from my client in March, and between yard work and these two pieces, the stormwater as well as conservation, allow me to spend a lot of time and do some more research. And for that matter, Heather, I've generated big reports. Remember the MindJet report on the 40B? That was a monster. That was a 10-page D-size drawings and things like that. And there are other reports that I do regularly. I'm also the person that goes out and takes a lot of the photos, brings it in, edits them, and submits them to the team. So to answer your question, this is fun. This is important. It's really important to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Franco?
Yes, to be fair, again, the same question. If, in the event you are not reappointed, would you be willing to remain as an associate?
This is real important. Yes, and I would hopefully can still remain on the stormwater piece, because honestly, that is the biggest animal we've got coming up. It's going to affect our citizens, their pocketbooks, all the pieces that are floating around there. Conservation is really important, very important. Our town loves the way we are, with all this vegetation and trees and things like that. I love living here, so it would be hard for me not to be on it, but I would certainly want to participate. I've served 6 years as the Finance Committee, 6 years on the Board of Health, and this is 8 years at this one, so I am a volunteer.
Thank you. Mr. Alonso. And Mr. Rabbit, if I can just remind you just to stand behind the podium.
I'm sorry.
So that way the residents at home can hear you as well.
So first I want to start by thanking, instead of waiting till the end, I'll thank you for your years of service thus far and all the work that you've done on not only the Conservation Commission, but all the other boards and committees that you have been on. So the first question, as you've heard, no surprises. So what, in your mind, what is the most important issues facing the Conservation Commission today?
It would have to be education, both to the public. We need help. We need energy. We need this. We have a limited kinetic energy, and there's a tremendous amount of potential energy sitting out there. We need to be able to educate the population. We need a vision and mission that is going to create some excitement. We need to be able to get more people involved and with a focus. And so that, from my perspective, education, getting them the commitment, it would be the number one piece. It all starts with education. It's energy, and we need to get more energy into that. So that,
as concisely as you can, what do you believe is the true objective of the Conservation Commission?
The Wetland Protection Act, as well as our conservation of our habitats, and probably thirdly is just the general look and feel of Lunenburg, and whatever we can do to protect that is what we want to do, while not driving the citizens into bankruptcy. And that's our challenge in stormwater, right? So that would be it, Tom. Okay. I went to 3. I'm sorry. I didn't know the one.
And lastly, on those votes that you found yourself in the minority, would you be able to support the majority decision of the commission?
I would say 99% of the time, yes. In fact, the one of the examples was the hunting on our conservation lands, and especially on the trails. Our committee it's a committee. It was a 4-3 kind of breakout. I had done some statistical sampling with regard to talking to various members, and it was clear in my mind, the data was irrefutable, that essentially 2/3 of the population did not want to share guns or people walking around with guns on the trails. And so what happened is we lost the vote. But every so often you got to stand up. And so what I did is I met with some other people, some other conservation-minded people, and we said, look, the best thing we can do is get more people on those conservation trails. They'll be more supportive of the long-term environment and doing the things that we need to do. So basically, we went to town meeting, and asked for a non-binding referendum specific to should we or should we not allow. And as you recall, it was pretty much overwhelming that the majority of the town did not want guns. Now, the good news is that we follow the laws, and at the end of it, the membership of the Conservation Commission saw that. And they saw that the majority of the population was not in favor of that, and they changed their minds and they turned the vote. So in this particular case, I did not. I have had another instance, and this was a hard one, and remember, I'm 8 years now, in which the town, with regard to the fuel tanks, and wanting the placement of the fuel tanks. And essentially, the law requires that we're 200 feet riparian from the water supply, from the Mulpus in this particular case. And we had some hard debates. We got the fuel tanks, but the filling station, members still wanted that filling station well within the 200 feet, I think it was like 120. That was not consistent with the laws of the state. So we ended up with in a compromise. And oh, by the way, we have had an oil spill, a diesel fuel spill, out of the Passios. I think it ran down by your house.
It did. It was a cleanup site.
It's a real probability. And again, I'm quality reliability systems, and I look at the probability of occurrence, what is the material that's moving down, and a whole pile of other factors. And it's product, processes, and people. And we noted that the people part of it was weaker, and the processes had not been defined, and we negotiated that. And I went to the point in which I said to to these groups, look, I am really unhappy with this decision. I'm unhappy to the point in which I'm willing to go to DEP and seek their guidance. And eventually, that kind of stirred everybody up a little bit because they were upset that we weren't going to support them. But I said, look, we need to come up with a better answer. So we ended up negotiating in that meeting a better answer. And the better answer was, okay, you don't start that process until you have your procedures in place, especially all the safety procedures. Now, that is required to do a startup, but also make sure that all the employees are trained in with regard to what are you doing for fueling, what are can you walk away, can you do those types of things. The employees had to be trained. And I received that commitment from DPW that they would in fact do that. And when they did that, I then came back and said, okay, I'm not going. In fact, I ended up voting for it in favor of it. But I was willing to go, Tom, I was willing to go to the point in which I would do anything to protect the habitat of my town, especially when I knew the laws were in my favor. And so therefore I moved in that direction. So I'm not going to take the chances with 500 of our residents are on this lake down the Mulpus. We're going to ruin that lake for 2 or 3 years if we ever had a leak, never mind the devastation going on down in the Mulpus. So no, I couldn't stand with that. So I stood up, but we came to a resolution. So yes, to answer your question, I did.
Thank you for that answer, Mr.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be that long.
The answer was no, you don't all the time.
99.9% of the time I will support. I may not vote in favor of it.
Well, that's
but that's a different issue.
I didn't choose the anecdote. You chose the anecdote. I'm just saying the answer to my question is not all the time.
No, I would say that 99.99%.
What am I saying that's? I'll say it again. What am I saying that's not accurate? Not all the time.
It would be correct.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. Thank you. Okay. I thought it was a simple thing.
Well,
okay, I understand the 99%, but that's also not all the time.
Yay or nay.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions?
Nope.
All right. You kind of didn't fill out the form the same way as everyone else.
Well, I had a hard time even making it work.
So I don't have a question for you, but thank you, Mr. Rabbit, for stepping forward. And I do want to give you the opportunity, though. When members of the public come forward and advocate against a reappointment, as we had in public comments tonight, would you like, certainly not to address that gentleman specifically, but would you like to address any reasons why there may be?
If I could, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I would ask that you not address the gentleman directly, but if you can answer the question of, do you understand if or why there may be opposition to your reappointment?
Right. I would, first of all, urge the members to go back and look at the last couple of meetings. And if you go back and look at the last 100 meetings, there will always be some sort of disappointment with regard to an individual wanting something that is clearly not consistent with our laws in the town The individual, unfortunately.
Mr. Rabbit, just make sure you're speaking into
Okay.
the microphone.
The individual, unfortunately, I went out and did a site visit, myself and another person. Our laws require that whatever you've submitted on the specification is that which you will build to. Part of the site visit is to go out and evaluate how well they followed the specifications that were submitted. There were some discrepancies that were noted, and essentially a violation. We have met with this party on two different occasions in the field, I believe. In fact, the issue isn't closed yet. We have basically agreed to go back out next Saturday to take another look and see that. But I would urge you to go and take a look at that meeting and see what happened there. It's not. It happens. And as long as we take an oath to stand up for our town and stand up for the laws of the town and the things that the citizens want, you're going to run into some occasional problems. And how you handle it, you try to do the best you can. And I would note that the other members have all agreed that we did not have to take a vote at that time. And we're trying to be as gentle as we possibly can, but yet maintain the requirements of the laws that we live in, and the town has asked us to do
Thank you,
this.
Mr. Rabbit, for that
Thank
answer.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I would
set?
like
Thank
to
you.
give the board the opportunity to engage in any kind of discussion on the interviews that we just had. Any thoughts, opinions, comments before we start the...
Oh, Mr. Chair, I just want to point out for the
I'm sorry,
public.
Jeffrey.
Yes.
I forgot
Okay.
one. Thank you. Thought we were done. Jeff Viviano. Is Jeff Viviano
No,
here?
he
with
has a
us?
letter.
No, he has a letter.
He has a
He's not
letter in the
attending.
apologizing he's not
Yeah.
able to be here tonight,
So-
so he wrote a letter.
Yeah.
I would
there we go.
recommend that we read it into the record.
Mr., to the clerk, would the clerk mind reading the letter into the record?
What did I sign up for? All right. Okay. June 6, 2022. Lunenburg Select Board. Good evening. I sincerely apologize I am not able to attend this week's meeting, but please accept this letter in my absence. To start, a bit of my history in Lunenburg. In my early years, my family would rent a camp on Lake Shirley during the summers. As we grew older, my parents enjoyed life on the lake so much they decided to become full-time residents, and in 1988 they relocated from Acton to Lunenburg. They still reside in the same small cape, spending summers in town and snowbirding to Florida off-season. My wife and I always wanted to own a home on a lake, and after raising our family in Lunenburg for 12 years, we rolled the dice on a vacant lot on Lake Shirley, and I was given the task from the landowner to go through the town boards, departments, and commissions to be approved for building. This was a challenging process, which took over 18 months. So why conservation after seeing so many different positions through this experience? I grew up hunting and camping. I'm an avid saltwater fisherman. I've always enjoyed the pleasures a body of water and our conservation lands offer. I've visited many of our national parks and seen so many wonderful and breathtaking places in this country and others. The key is we enjoy these natural environments and need to protect them. Lunenburg is a unique place. It is a farming town at heart, but flourished into a lake community with its 3 large bodies of water. The tight wire to cross, in many cases, is protecting these wetland areas and conservation lands while doing our best to live in parallel. These positions require a member to be fluent in reading and deciphering engineered drawings from small projects, which may be just a retaining wall, to large projects like commercial distribution facilities. I have 7 years' experience as a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning contractor on large commercial job sites with advanced knowledge in reading blueprints. This may seem like an easy task, but requires the ability to reproduce 2-dimensional drawings into a 3-dimensional picture in your mind, which is a requirement, in my opinion, to serve our residents as well as tentative or current investors in our community. My work history also includes over 30 years as a commercial airline pilot. This profession requires a great amount of reading and deciphering rules and regulations. Being on the Conservation Commission, there may be many rules and regulations in the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and also in the town bylaws we adopted. I believe my niche on this commission is working with the residents of our beautiful town that may have difficulty with our process. On many occasions, I developed designs and drawings with applicants in order to help them through the application process, which can be challenging and stressful. The town of Lunenburg has many wetland areas with a substantial residential presence and expanding commercial footprint. I feel that in my time on this commission, I have provided the applicants within our ability to live in parallel with that fragile ecosystem, which is our job to protect. Please accept this letter confirming my request to be reappointed to Conservation. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Jeff Viviano.
Thank you, Mr. Franco, for reading the letter from Mr. Jeffrey Viviano into the record. And as Mr. Viviano stated, he is unable to be with us this evening. And on his reappointment form, he also did not answer the question of what resources could be provided, so I'm going to assume that he didn't have any resources that he thought needed to be provided. And with that, I want to give the board the opportunity to make some comments, discussion, before we make our affirmative motions tonight. So any thoughts, comments before we move into the...
Are we commenting specifically on Mr. Viviano or
anything?
Anything as a whole?
No?
I wanted to, because Mr. Viviano wasn't here, I just wanted to comment that I got to know him initially when I was serving on the Conservation Commission, because I was a member during his arduous 18-month process, which may have been one of the most strung out hearings or applications in my memory. During that time, he always was courteous to the board, responsive to its direction, and abided by its decisions even when he disagreed with them. And I think that spoke very well of him, and I think he's demonstrated that on the commission so far.
Thank you, Mr. Dwyer. Any additional comments?
I have none at this time.
Well, I'll just say one as we look. First of all, I think we're really blessed because it's always amazing when we have this many applicants for this many spots, and having more applicants than there are spots, it puts us in an uncomfortable position. But it's good to have people who are wanting to serve the community, and I wish this was the case in all of the appointments and elections that we had. So I want to thank all the applicants for coming forward and wanting to serve. The things that I'm going to be looking at, beside the answers to obviously the questions that were asked, is I want the commission, and I think this is an area that has been troublesome to me. I think people in any commission need to represent a diversity of people across the town. And I think it's been very heavily weighted for many years for people on the lakes, and especially 2 lakes in town, and I think to the exclusion of other people. So I look for other people's input. I think this is true, by the way, it's not just conservation. So the sewer commission is the same thing. I think we have too many people not on the sewer at all running the sewer commission, which is problematic. So I'll be looking for that. I'll be looking for people putting in and willing to put in not only the effort in the commission's role, which is substantial, as was mentioned by several of the applicants, as well as, Mr. Dwyer has long experience on the Conservation Commission too. But people will be willing to put out effort outside of that, because I think that the addressing of some of the things, the improvement, for instance, of the Conservation Commission is not necessarily just within the commission's purview. I think within the workings of the commission, in a legal sense. I think showing their efforts to do things outside of that is very important too. And then I'm looking for people who, again, provide the teamwork and leadership that I think is important. Any single member has only the authority they have as a voting member of the body, and it's the commission that has the authority. And I think when you come out, whether you come out on the majority or the minority, it's the commission that has the authority to do that, and to try to fight against that in any substantial way against your own. Either you don't trust people on your own commission to make good decisions, and to take issue with that and take it to higher powers is something I have problems with. So those are the three things that I'll be looking at when we apply to people in these three positions. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Alonso. And I want to provide some commentary as well. Apparently, I picked a bad seat tonight. And there's one chair up here that everyone knows, like, constantly just, like, slowly falls, and I got it.
Got to get here early.
That's not going to happen.
You're gonna get it every time.
So my comments tonight are, being a selectman now for 3 years, there was only one time in which we had residents here by the bushels, shall we say, for multiple meetings in a row, and it was all because of the Conservation Commission's dealings with residents from Lake Shirley. And it was, and I'm not going to hash old news. It was obviously an inappropriate situation that occurred, and I know that when you're in the heat of the moment, sometimes you don't respond the best way to situations as you do when you're looking back at it the next day or even next few minutes. But it highlights one of what my concerns has been over the last couple of years, and I think that our ability to affect the Conservation Commission is through this process. I think that we try to show a lot of professional deference to the Conservation Commission and not meddling with the affairs, but it's who we appoint in this process, and really tonight, that we get to kind of push out our viewpoints on what we would like to see and what we hope. My opinion is that it's very important that, number one, that residents who come before the commission, that you are respectful of their time. That the meeting length's 3.5 hours, maybe that's necessary, maybe it's not. But I think that kind of time commitment in a meeting, it wears people down. And I think that there may need to be some thought into how the meetings are going, into how much time members individually are speaking for, because the meetings, I wouldn't like to be in one of your meetings, quite frankly. They're too long. They're just too long. And I don't know if all that time is really meaningful time. So that would be a criticism that I offer politely. I also think that there are times, and we heard some comments tonight, there are times when there are concerns that exceed the authority of the board. And when you have those moments, I think it's really important that, and I want to be respectful as I say this, but there's a phrase I like to use from the military that's called stay in your lane. That it is perfectly okay to have situational awareness of our left and right sides, to have that peripheral vision. But if something is not in our lane, I think what we need to do is communicate to the person whose lane it is. That, hey, you might have a problem here. There might be a concern here. This is something that we need to look further into. But we can't make decisions that are predicated on something that we have no control over. And so it's, in my opinion, that's another area that I think, that concerns that have come from residents, things I've seen myself. I've watched several of your meetings. Well, I won't say all the full meetings because they're long, but I've watched many meetings, and those were my kind of key takeaways was, wow, these are a little lengthy, and this seems really off topic in certain occasions. So I would just encourage that as we go forward, all boards, but really the conservation in particular, that you keep in mind that when residents, you know this, you're public servants like we are. I'm not trying to lecture, but I'm trying to say that when someone's in front of you, to be mindful that they're really there to get something done, and it comes across as a lot of red tape. It gives people a really distasteful experience. You can live in town for 20 years, never interact with a board, but that one time that you do, if it takes you 18 months, you don't leave there happy that you live in Lunenburg. You leave there really upset and angry. And so I think that we just have to be, I heard some of the things Mr. P said tonight, and I would just encourage that we continue that focus on the user experience and making sure that people who come before the board, that they, sometimes they're not going to hear things they want to hear, and that's fine. But you have to do it in a way that's respectful of their time. And with that, I will ask the board to begin the process of affirmative affirmative votes, I would kindly ask that if you feel strongly about a candidate, that you don't make more than one motion tonight, but certainly I'm open to any member doing as they so choose on the board. Mr. Dwyer.
Mr. Chair, I move that we reappoint Bob Pease to the Conservation Commission. I think Mr. Pease has gone above and beyond the call of duty in his efforts on the commission, and I think it would serve us well to reappoint him to another term.
Second.
Any additional points of discussion? All right. As many as are in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Mr. Pease, congratulations. You are appointed to the Conservation Commission for a term to expire 2025. Please be sure to get sworn in by the town clerk's office at your earliest convenience. Selectwoman Soroka.
Yes, I would like to nominate or for appointment Mary Wilson to the Conservation Commission. I feel that she speaks to what Mr. Alonso said, the diversification of the commission, not only as a woman, but as a person who doesn't live on one of the lakes.
Second.
Are there any other, any additional points of discussion?
I just want to, if I could just say, I support this wholeheartedly. Very impressive background.
All right. As many as are in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Congratulations, Ms. Wilson. You've been appointed to the Conservation Commission for a term to expire June 2025. Please be sure to see the town clerk and get sworn in.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Alonso.
I would now move that we reappoint Jeff Viviano to the Conservation Commission.
Second.
Is there any other points of discussion on this? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
No.
No. That I counted that as a 3-2 in favor. The ayes have it. Mr. Viviano has been appointed to the Conservation Commission, and he will need to get sworn in at his earliest convenience. I want to thank the other members, Mr. Rabbit and Mr. Trimbley, for stepping up tonight, and Mr. Rabbit for your 8 years of service, and Mr. Trimbley for stepping forward. Certainly, we do appreciate you and your service this evening, and again, thank you. All right, we are going to go to the town manager's report. To the town manager. Step away for a second.
I'll start with the existing vacancies on boards and committees. There is one vacancy on the Agricultural Commission, one vacancy on the Economic Development Committee, that is a person recommended by Open Space Committee, one vacancy on the Finance Committee, and 2 associate vacancies on the Green Communities Committee, and 1 vacancy on the Historical Commission. Anyone interested in any of these openings can find the application on the town website and complete it and return it to the Select Board's office. And any questions you have on these positions, you can contact our office as well at 978-582-4130, extension 144. The current employment opportunities with the town, there are currently 2 library assistant positions that would start July 1st as part of the fiscal 23 budget. Those are part-time non-benefited positions. There's 2 heavy equipment operator positions at the DPW. Those are full-time benefited positions. A meal site manager position that would begin July 1st as well. It's currently being advertised. That's a part-time non-benefited position. A production technician, which is a part-time benefited position. A van driver, part-time non-benefited position, and videographers for public access, which are part-time non-benefited positions. Information on these job openings can be found on the town website under employment opportunities, and you can find out how to apply. So I attended a conference last week, and part of that conference was a legislative update from Jeff Beckworth of MMA. And so these were some of the highlights. Fiscal updates. The state is closing the fiscal year with a projected $7 billion surplus in revenues. This will result in a supplemental budget bill that we'll see in the fall. So that's would be forthcoming. For fiscal 23, the Senate's budget proposal that passed doubles the unrestricted general government aid for a 5.4% increase. So that's yet to be determined. It has to go through conference committee and then the governor sign off. So that's likely to change. It also includes a $60 per student for minimum aid and accelerated funding for charter and special education reimbursements. So those are all things that are in the Senate version of the budget bill for fiscal 23. In regards to remote meetings, there's currently pending legislation to extend the remote meetings to December 15th, 2023. So currently, right now, the existing legislation is, it would expire on July 15th. So based on when that passes, that would be, the proposal right now is to extend it to December 15th, 2023. So I will send out communications as soon as, that's known. I'm sure it will be up against the deadline because that's where it's been.
Is there any indication that there's an appetite to do that, or?
There is discussion about doing it permanently as well, but they're working with the different, the state agencies. So the Secretary of State's office and wanting to make that permanent, but that's just discussion. It's not, the current bill is for an extension of this. There is legislation surrounding retirement boards. Currently, there's a bill that would allow retirement boards to add a COLA, a cost of living increase of up to 5% annually. This would affect all towns that are participate in county retirement boards, where that retirement board would have carte blanche, basically, from that board to institute that COLA increase. So obviously, our assessment would be directly impacted for our unfunded liability. So this is something I'm going to reach out to our legislators about, make sure our position is known that we're not in favor of this.
I was going to say that, to increase it up to 5% and we can only raise our revenue up to 2.5% seems to be a mismatch. Right.
The Cannabis Bill, which the board, I think, is all aware of that pending legislation. The Senate has their version of the bill that has gone through the different readings, and originally it was prospective and so future and past host community agreements would be impacted. The final version is only future host community agreements would be impacted. It also creates a social equity account, which would fund capital into a special account for people to apply for to create their own, because it takes up to $1 million to start up a cannabis business. The House has their version. It's unclear of whether it's past and future impact on host community agreements. The MMA and our association has all been putting forth our argument that it should only be future host community agreements. These are legal binding agreements that communities entered into that should not have to be reviewed by the CCC for provisions. Also, the Senate version of that bill also includes that any fees would have to be directly accounted for. So there's a percentage of fee that's in our host community agreement, for instance, that we can charge up to. And right now, it's just that's a flat fee, because it's very difficult for us to, account for everything that's relatable to a retail establishment, cannabis establishment. So
was it discussed what the impetus for this was?
The what was relayed was it's the cannabis industry pushing this.
So the onus would be on the towns to have a separate accounting system for any cannabis establishments, which is
administrative
impossible.
work for towns.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. The MBTA, we've talked about that, the Housing Choice Act. So that has obviously attracted a lot of attention from affected communities. What was stated, which is really relevant, is there's nothing in the statute that requires any of this to be affordable housing. So any communities that are looking to put stipulations that there be a percentage of affordable housing as part of this, they would be up against potential litigation because this isn't as right in the statute. So that's just to be on your radar.
All right. I have a question. So I know that there's like a dozen bills before the Senate and the House regarding extending or making permanent the hybrid options for public meetings. I would just ask that if any one of them starts taking precedence, to just, if you hear about it, let us know. I did talk to Representative Kushmarek and Cronin in the last week about this as well, just to say that, hey, these meetings really work better, I think, when they're hybrid. But if you hear anything, I'm sure you will.
No, that's what I said. Would definitely let everybody know as soon as I know, because I know everyone's been inquiring, what are we going to do after July 15th? So that would require permanent extension of that, or a permanency of remote meetings is going to acquire a lot more coordination with the different state agencies, I think, for that to make it happen. So.
Okay. Are you hearing that there's going to be an extension?
I think it's likely that there would be an extension.
Okay. Thank you.
Update on information technology. Our network equipment project, which included switches and firewalls and all related network equipment, is complete. So this project improves the Wi-Fi coverage across all our town buildings, improves security through advanced malware protection, improves reporting and alerting, and adds a guest Wi-Fi network for all of our town buildings that is a separate network than our internal network. So overall, much improved security for the town. There's still some cleanup work that's just like more aesthetic stuff for cabling and some ceiling tiles that needed to be replaced due to access points and such.
Part of this project, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Of course.
Part of this project are we employing somebody to do penetration security tests against the network to see if we have any vulnerabilities that we need to address? Is that part of the project? That
was discussed with our IT consultant as part of, but we wanted to put this in place first.
Okay.
All our town email accounts have been migrated to Office 365 with the exception of the library email accounts. So it came to my attention and the IT directors or IT consultants' attention that the library, who uses CW Mars, that their accounts aren't archived. So we made the decision that we'd create all town email accounts for those. So they'd have, all their emails would be archived going forward. So, and I will let everyone know once a timeline for transitioning all the board and committee email accounts over to 365 will be. An update on fiscal 21 and fiscal 22 capital plan projects. The Ritter Building break room, I'm meeting with Monty Tech next week. This project was delayed this year. It was supposed to be undertaken this year, but they had staffing vacancies that we had to postpone it. And so I'm meeting with staff from Monty Tech next week, and we expect to undertake it in the fall for that project. So that will be going forward. The 6-wheel dump truck for DPW, the director contacted dealerships under combis, but the dealership did not acknowledge that order, the previous director, I'm sorry. Currently, the town mechanic is searching for this truck, but has yet to find one. As we know, there's a supply chain shortage of vehicles and equipment. So we're directly impacted by that. The 3/4-ton pickup truck with plow, that's a similar situation where the previous director contacted dealerships under combis for that as well, but the dealership did not acknowledge an order. And there are not many to be found, but they have a couple leads that they're following up on. The current DPW director and town mechanic. The 2 police cruisers, this is, we're waiting on parts for the consoles of those 2 cruisers, so the expectation is that those would be on the road within the next month or so. The Ritter ADA ramp and envelope construction project and the town hall building envelope repairs project, I'll group those together. The APDC was supposed to have a hearing last night on both of those projects, but they did not have a quorum, so that had to be re-noticed and re-advertised. So that hearing will be June 27th at 7:30 p.m. The town hall building project also we had to file an application through the Mass Historical Commission, because this has a preservation restriction agreement on this building, and that was received, and they have until July 1st to respond to that application.
This is the second time they've postponed it for lack of a quorum. Is there a serious problem with membership there that we need to know about?
I'm not sure who was not able to attend last night.
Thank you. I asked the same question via email.
Okay.
Because it is the second time.
Right, in a row, yeah.
Yep. And, I mean, I know I raised a question previously about constructive approval, but when are we at that?
I'd have to look at the actual file date, but it's 90 days total.
Yep.
So we're not there yet.
All right.
Update on 925 Mass Ave. Our tax title attorney was notified in April to move forward with that foreclosure process, and a notice had to be reissued because there were 3 parties that were part of were mortgagees on that property. So they've been successfully notified, and they have until June 20th to respond. If they do not respond, our tax title attorney will file a motion to issue a foreclosure judgment, and from that point, when that motion is filed, there's a 1-year redemption period, and once that 1-year redemption period expires, then the property is fully foreclosed and we can dispose of it. So hopefully sometime next year this time, we'll be through that fully foreclosed process. The Town Beach Building update, the asbestos abatement work was just completed for that building, and we have to put out the construction portion of the project out to bid. But I would not anticipate that building would be usable this summer due to the construction schedule, but if it is, obviously everyone will be notified of any updates on that timeline. But all the beach operations are expected to operate outside of the building and outside of the construction zone. And I did notify the Parks Commission today of that as well. Neshoba Regional Dispatch District update. I serve on the administration board for the district, and I'm chairing that committee right now. So we've tackled the project of our agreement for the district. So the original communities that signed on to the regional dispatch signed a different agreement than some subsequent communities, and that was because there was a change in law that allowed the establishment of a district. So those subsequent communities signed a district agreement. There's some discrepancies in the language, so we've gone through both agreements, all the language, and updated those, and we'll be presenting those in uniformity, so we're all signing the same agreement. So I'd be bringing that to the board at a future meeting, just a heads up on that.
Okay.
And that's also, we've been working with, there's 2 other boards associated with the district. There's the Subcommittee Finance Committee, as well as an Operations Committee, which is police and fire chiefs. So everyone's collaborating on that as well. Meetings, events, and other announcements. The Lunenburg Farmers Market will start on Sunday, June 12th, and is every Sunday until Sunday, September 25th. And the band concerts will be on the following dates: July 11th, July 18th, July 25th, August 1st, August 8th, and a rain date, if any of those dates are canceled, on August 15th. And again, the band concerts will be on the TCP front lawn area, and you can bring your lawn chairs.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Are there any questions to the town manager? Well, thank you, Heather, as always, for the town manager's report. I think I need to give an update on the Neshoba Regional. So I previously mentioned that I was conflicted and on this, and so because of my professional job, I am responsible for the building, and that the Neshoba Regional Dispatch has a lease in, and so I previously made sure that the conflict was on the work side, so I'd be hands-off on work side, so I could be hands-on on this side. Because of a change in personnel, I have to flip-flop my conflict. So I can have nothing to do with it on this side, because I have to be engaged on the other side. So just to advise the board, I have to abstain from anything involving the Neshoba Regional Dispatch. Thank you for that. And again, in your meetings, events, and other announcements, you did mention the farmers market. And again, as Mr. Tyler noted earlier today, that really good news is that the Historical Society will be open at the same time. So those coming to the farmers market, you'll have an opportunity now to go check out the Historical Society during that time. All right, I'm going to move on our agenda a little bit. So on our agenda next, we would have old business and then going into current business. I want to move to current business number 2 to discuss the request for a candlelight vigil and a community resolution. So I'm going to provide. So how we're going to have the conversation is I'm going to provide some background, and then the board is going to have a presentation or discussion. Then I will turn to Mr. Alonso for a presentation or discussion on the resolution. Then we will have a discussion on the process of requesting town events. Then there will be a discussion on the vigil, and then we will open to comments from the public. So by means of background, why we have this request on the agenda tonight. So a little bit of background, that there was a resident idea. Mr. McDonald had a really good idea to have a vigil. And the idea was on Thursday, the May 26th, for a vigil and for a proclamation from the select board and the community to address violence against children. And on Friday, the 27th of May, several department heads, the town manager, local newspaper, members of clergy, superintendent of schools, 2 selectmen, including Mr. Alonso and myself, were contacted, and we were invited to a meeting on Saturday, May 28th. I was not able to attend that meeting, but following the meeting, there was an update that was emailed that detailed kind of what the next steps were. At that time, a date was set for June the 10th, and with a location to be determined. On Tuesday, June the 1st, I was emailed a flyer for the vigil that invited residents to sign a resolution to stop violence against children, and the location was identified as being at the TCP campus. And that was the point at which I sent an email advising that the requests need to come before the select board, and I stated that the group, and I think I used the phrase, pump the brakes on advertising. So my concern initially is certainly about process, that before we can advertise an event happening on town property, that especially if the event is concerning a resolution, that needs to come before the proper channels, go through the select board's office, to the town manager, and then come before the select board. And so that is why this is on the agenda tonight. There also was a request from Mr. McDonald and a request from Mr. Alonso for this to be on the agenda tonight. So there's a resolution as I understand it. I don't have any insight on it. The board has not seen that, but I would.
There is no draft resolution, so I was surprised when I heard you say that. As of now, I can give people an outline of what the resolution will contain, but there is no draft resolution for the board to see.
Okay. All right. In our Google Drive, we do have some flyers, and I believe there's some here in the room tonight that we can take a look at, and if we have any to present as well.
Thank you.
So, thank you. And I'll pass these down. Looks like there's 2 different versions. So I'm just going to pass them down, but they're also here. So there's 2 different flyers. One says, "Together we can find a way to keep our children safe. Come to a candlelight vigil and sign a resolution to support school safety on Friday, June the 10th at 6:30 at TC Passeo's campus." And then the other one is just a candlelight vigil for Lunenburg residents to stop the violence on Friday, the June 10th at 6:30 p.m. And it's also asking just to sign our resolution, let our word go out and be heard throughout the country. We don't have a resolution to discuss, so I want to discuss, before we get into the vigil and all the details here, we don't have a resolution, so there's no resolution. Is there any, you said there's no draft, would you mind just going over what that outline is?
Sure. In that Zoom meeting that you said of I can't remember, the Saturday, the 27th, right before Memorial Day,
Yes.
There was a desire to call for some action, and the action was discussed, and obviously the action, we did not, the group, not we, so the proponents of this did not want it to be a religious call to action or a political call to action, and so we settled on what we thought would be a personal call to action about what the people who would sign this would commit themselves to, the values and the actions that they themselves would commit themselves to in response to these acts of violence that have been, coming all too frequently. So that was what the essence is. So people who will be attending will be asked to, voluntarily, to sign this resolution as kind of a confirmation or commitment to themselves and their neighbors in how they can react to what we've been seeing on the news with all the violence all across the country.
Okay. Any members have any questions about that?
I'm just curious, what does that mean, how they would react to it? Like, for example, what would the resolution say? How would they react? I'm not understanding.
It would be things that they would be asked to commit themselves to. I mean, things such as being vigilant and watching for signs of potential problems, watching out for people who are excluded or troubled, or, again, things of that nature that we can all, I think part of it is, in these stories, we hear in past, well, there were signs and people missed those signs. So maybe we commit ourselves to finding and acting, recognizing potential issues and, trying to intercede in all different measures to prevent them before they happen. Again, issues of isolation or issues of social media posts that predict or encourage, violence or any kind of harm to other people or people harming themselves, things like that, to be watchful for that and to try to intercede in some way. It's just that everybody would take a personal responsibility of mining the area around themselves in a community way.
If I may, just for my own clarification and for that of the public. So the select board is not being asked to, as a body, to adopt or endorse this resolution or proclamation. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
I think, and again, there are people who the proponents are here, but I think what is being asked is for the town to sponsor the event be held, not that they organize. The town or the select board is not being asked to organize the event or for that event to represent them. They just want to give them permission to have the vigil. And if I am incorrect, please, people in the audience, please say that.
I ask at this time for Mr. McDonald, if you wouldn't mind just coming forward and just, Mr.
But he's very shy.
Mr. Murphy and Mr. Serapis.
Timothy Murphy, 97 Island Road. And I'm Paul Serapis, 43 Cortlandt Circle. So, as Dave always does, he has great intentions and started talking to people a couple days after Uvalde school shooting. And I was one of the people that he talked to, and then he put me on an email list and interrupted my Memorial Day, as he did several other people's Memorial Days. And there were about 20 people that all took a Saturday morning to speak with Dave and talk with each other about how to do something nice to recognize and stand up for all the violence that we're seeing. Somebody put it on the radio to me that I was listening to yesterday, said, we're in the middle of an epidemic, but we're not talking about COVID. We're talking about the epidemic of the shootings. And one of the people in the group, and there were 20 people on that email, and with the Lockwoods are here, and I know that obviously Dave is here and Paul's here, and we have several people I think that are on in the audience on Zoom. But we're in the middle of this epidemic, but it's not just schools, because schools was 2 weeks ago, and that's what sort of got this going. But just the week before was the gentleman, I'll call him a gentleman, who decided to drive out of his way to go to Buffalo to seek out a store where he would find the most number of black people there. And he actually scoped it out at least once before to make sure he had the best target. So it's more than just schools, although Uvalde really started the schools, and I think sometimes it's the focus. So it's unfortunate that things got a little off track. Mr. Jeffries, as far as permissions and schools and properties and events and all those types of things. But it all starts off with the best of motives. And what it started off with, McDonald actually wanted to do it like last Friday. Well, then somebody from the schools and Chief Gamble said, well, the Friday night and Saturday morning of graduation, that's going to be really, not work. But you'll want to do it while there's energy as well, And unfortunately, there's plenty of energy because the shootings and the killings, and it goes beyond, anything political, and it goes beyond just mass shootings. There's just so much violence in the community. So what we really hope is, as I think Tom is trying to explain, is that there'll be a resolution and people will take some personal responsibility. After 9/11, that's what we did. You see something, say something, right? We got the little motto going. So, what can we do? If you know kids in your community, if you have adults in your community, if you see things that are going on in your community, if there are people that are marginalized, those are people that we need to be paying special attention to. So that's what some of the resolution will be about, everybody taking some opportunity. We would like to do it. We'd like to have permission to do it this Friday at 6:30. A lot of talk, a lot of people have been involved to get things lined up because you have to do that. You can't just flip a switch and have it go really quickly. So we do have people that are lined up that are going to speak about the issue, and then we're going to have the resolution, we hope, that we can pass around and have people sign it. So the best of intentions. If there were some missteps, we apologize for that. But there's a lot of people who would like to be able to stand up as a community, make a statement, and take some resolution to take steps to make a change. The other thing I hear on the radio, and I'm retired, so I can listen to a lot more time on the radio now. But somebody said, maybe it was on Facebook, thoughts and prayers. This is what we hear all the time. It's been a shooting. Thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. Well, how about some action? How about we do something, okay? So this is an opportunity for us to do something as a community, stand up, come to a meeting, and sign a resolution to take some responsibility yourself to try to do something in some small way to make a change. So that's why we're here, asking for the special permit on town property.
Okay, I'm gonna
Go ahead.
I think that is a little different than I probably understood it. So I want to comment on process a little bit.
Sure.
So, to me, being against a vigil is like being against apple pie. It's really hard to
Nobody's
be
against a vigil. I know that.
Okay. I think as a matter of process, we have a young lady that's looking to come before us for an event, and she was scheduled to be here today, but it was not properly notified. Mm-hmm. And so we had to reschedule her to the 21st, so that way we can have a public hearing for her. I think it's important that we're consistent with our processes. I think, in my opinion, and I offer this as an opinion, in my opinion, a vigil, as I've seen it, is usually something that's brought about by children and families in response to some tragedy that impacts them, and it's usually within hours or a day of an event. Now, I'm not saying that I have the rule book on vigils, because I don't, but that's usually what I've seen for vigils. I think that the way that this was presented was I was unclear. It seemed to me to be a private event. Mm-hmm. I was looped in on being aware of. I don't think anything triggered in me until I saw a flyer that said TC Passios and a resolution. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. How do we have resolutions going on? We haven't even talked about this. We need to make sure we're going through the right process here. So that was one, so I think that was probably my initial thing. But the other part of this, and I don't want to drill too deeply into this, but I think we, as members of the select board, are focused on the residents of Lunenburg, and I think we have to be careful not to wade into the culture wars that are going on in our country. And I think that if we're going to, and it was presented as though this was a town event. I think I got an email that was pretty clear that this was a town event, not a outside organization looking to host a town event. And so those were some of my concerns, I think, initially about process. But I want to ask another question a little more specifically. So one of the things about, it's hard to be against an incident that involves violence against children. But there's many ways to look at the gun situation that we're having in our country, the violent situation that we're having in our country. And it's hard to figure out when do we have vigils and when don't we. And I want to say, and again, I have to be, and I mean this from the best of places, as respectfully as possible. What are the atrocities in the world that we see that we respond to? At what point do we start having vigils? Do we do it for everything we see? Do we do it for some things that we see? What are the things we do? And when we have a message such as, stop the violence against children. So I'm gonna give you some details of some basic research, okay? And I don't want to go too heavy here. Some people, myself included, believe that gun violence in the United States is largely a racial justice issue. And I want to be specific with what I mean. Here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we are the second lowest state in the country for gun violence. Our rate every 100,000 people is 3.7, and the lowest state is Hawaii. With 3.4. Now, if you are a minority, if you're a black person, specifically black, because I want to black, if you're a black person living in Massachusetts, that rate jumps up to 11.9. So as a black man, I have my chance of getting shot and killed by a weapon is 3 times higher than anyone that's a Caucasian. When you look at across the country, right, and we talk about this rate, 3.7 out of 100,000. When we look at other countries, and we know that we have a problem with all the people coming from Central America, El Salvador, Venezuela, Guatemala, Colombia, Honduras, their rates are 39.2 per 100,000. El Salvador, 38.7 Venezuela, 32.3 Guatemala, 25.9 in Colombia. And a lot of that is why so many people are coming to our southern border, that they're trying to flee this violence. Well, if you are a black man living in Arkansas, your rate is 45.4. If you're living in District of Columbia, 49.8. Illinois, 53.7. Indiana, 49.8. Kansas, 41.7. Kentucky, 47.6. Louisiana, 46.4. Michigan, 42.1. Mississippi, 41.1. Missouri, 73.7. New Mexico, 46.4. And this data, by the way, comes from, and I can give this to you, but certainly comes from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, okay? When we look about adolescent deaths, what's the adolescent rate of death in the United States? For ages 0 to 19, it's 5.6, okay? And when we talk about who's dying, 85% of these children are between the ages of 15 through 19. 43% of them are black. And if you're a black boy, the chance of you dying is 18 times higher than the white female that's on the flyer. So it really makes me wonder, and I have atrocities against children are terrible. But why do we pick this and not this?
Why don't you pick that? Why don't you bring that as an issue? I don't think limiting what other people want to do as a community changes what people are doing.
Ms. Lockwood, I will certainly give you the opportunity to speak.
I look forward to it.
But, so I'm not trying to do this, one up anybody here. I think that I find it all to be awful. But I don't think as a selectman in Lunenburg, I can address any of this. I don't think that I'm in a position as a selectman or anyone else on this board to address a lot of the problems that are happening across the country. In my opinion, I think it's all awful, it's all terrible, but I just don't know what we can do.
Well,
and I mean that honestly. And I don't know if a resolution is going to do anything when the solution has to be political.
Okay. Well, again, we specifically said that it was not going to just be about children, okay? And I specifically said a week earlier, one of the things that was just outrageous to me is how hard this gentleman planned to go and kill as many black people as he could. So those were the two events that happened very recently, okay? And those children in Uvalde are primarily all minorities, yes. Right? Everybody killed there was a minority, I think. So, I mean, this is a horrible, horrible epidemic.
It is.
This is not an organized group, okay? This is a groundswell of people who are trying to do something. Can the select board legislate anything? No. Can the select board make a statement that'll specifically do anything? I don't think so. But individually, we can do something. See something, stop something, okay? Make a stand that you're going to watch and look out and try to be aware of people in your community, larger community, small people that you work with. What about all the post office problems that they had? Were employees watching other employees to see if they could have seen a problem coming before a shooting occurred? Can we do something individually? And I hope that's what the resolution is. I think that's what Mr. Alonso is trying to get at. Okay, so nobody's against the vigils, and why that particular poster has a young girl on it, you could say, well, why is it a girl? Why isn't it a little boy? I don't know. Okay, when you have something you want to publicize, you want to grab attention. Okay, that'll grab attention. Okay, but what we're trying to do here is to get people there to make personal commitments, resolutions, if you will, to be able to, in some small way, help our community. It won't solve the problem. We specifically said we're not going to make it political, and we're not going to make it religious, okay? Yeah, because maybe you could get more people if you said it was anti-gun, okay? But not everybody in the community wants to be anti-gun. We just heard that from Mr. Pease and Mr. Rabbit about all that issue. And I was at that town meeting. I don't want to go back there. So we didn't want it to be anything other than, people, let's get together. Let's talk. What can we do as a community? And can we all get together? And that's where it comes from.
As I said, I think it's hard to be against a vigil. I think all cases, especially, when you have children, you see them dying unnecessarily before their lives ever get going, it just pulls at your heart. And I fully get it. I think that in the presentation of some of this, though, I think that part of the process of this is that tonight there's more information, and that's why I think some of this it's supposed to go through the town manager's office, in which that's where the request should be going. Yeah. And that way you're funneling all that information out there at once, because I think that when I came in here tonight, my understanding, based on the emails I received, was that the request was for this to be a town event, not an event by an outside group, that we were not utilizing the special permit process, which is why there's no appointment, why there's no public hearing for this. But I do think that it brings up the point of when something tragic happens, that our policies are probably inadequate to be able to react quick enough. That, if something happens on a Tuesday, that, you need to have a vigil on a Wednesday or a Thursday.
Yeah.
That you don't need to have a vigil after, you wait 2 weeks, and if you're in the unfortunate cycle of there being no select board meeting, now
exactly.
you're 3 and 4 weeks later.
And that was a sort of attempted. I mean, it was kind of quickly, and then it was, well, you got graduation and you can't do it now, and then the issue of, the permit, and then everything just fell apart. So now you've got a vigil, but again, there's just so much violence. When we were on a Zoom meeting 2 days ago or something, we were at the school committee, talked to the school committee about this issue, and that as 5 minutes before the meeting, there was a shooting at a medical facility in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So there'll be one. You get home and watch the news tonight, there'll be another. Philadelphia had so many shootings, so many that weekend. Philadelphia had shootings. What did they say? There were 11 mass shootings last weekend? 11. Now, some of that's dependent on how you're going to count mass shootings, so that's another issue. But, last weekend, 11 mass shootings? So it's always timely. So, and hopefully we don't have to have another vigil.
Mr. Alonso.
Sorry.
So I just want to respond to some of there's a whole breadth of things that were said here. My first one would be to the chair's statistics, why this one? I don't know. You'd have to ask the people who proposed it. And why aren't we more active in year-round in this? That's a great question. So why this one? And not those others. I would say all those other statistics probably qualify, and somebody should come forward. But somebody has come forward in this one. I think the town has to be able to be as you pointed out, to be quick enough to respond to maybe some groundswell that wants to do something, even if it's just co-grieving, even if it's just co-consoling each other. I don't think you want to thwart that, and I think we want to be able to recognize that we can provide the ground to do it without providing the accreditation, if that's the word, or if that's the thing. We don't have to sponsor what they're doing as far as the message, but we can allow them, as long as it stays peaceful, to do it. And I think that the proponents have tried to strike that balance. Initially, in many places in the country, vigils happen without anybody, right? They just happen spontaneously, and people gather on public squares and, school sites or whatever, and there's no request. So they were being cognizant of trying to ask how to do this to not ruffle any feathers in that regard, and I applaud them for that. And I understand your case with having procedures, and I think we need to strike a balance for these kind of events. They're not having an event that's selling wares or having some kind of town fair. It's something much more serious and much more grave and much more solemn than that. And for that, I think we should be able, and I think the bylaw allows us to have latitude to how we approve it and how fast we approve it. And certainly, if things got out of hand, if we had, I don't foresee it, but if we had an avalanche of vigil requests, we would have to, rein that in. But for the ones that happen, as long as they remain controlled and they remain peaceful, I think, I think it's a good thing. I think community healing and community coming together in some kind of fashion that wants to bond and fix the tears of society that clearly exist as more of these happen, I think they'd be good. And if people have better and more causes, and several of these happen a year, I'm for that. As long as the people in the town want to see that and want to participate in it, I'm for it.
I'll ask the other members of the board to also comment.
I don't see any problem with the candlelight visual. My question, I was concerned about the resolution and that they were asking us to sign a resolution without having read it in advance. So I don't have a problem with you having a resolution out there for people to sign.
Yeah, that's what it's for.
Yeah.
It's not intended as a select board
Yeah,
resolution or a proclamation.
that's what I was thinking about.
I'm sorry if that wasn't clear.
Yeah.
It's individual. Somehow we're going to try to get everybody to be signing their own resolution for themselves.
Right. And I do that myself. I have children at home, so I'm constantly watching
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking
Of
about.
course you are. Of course you are.
It's a mother thing.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah.
yeah.
Good citizenship.
Yeah.
Mr. Dwyer.
As you said, it's kind of hard to be against a vigil, and I'm not. I think this is a good idea, and to your other point of the impetus why this event, I think Tom surmised it. There's really no reason to it. But if it's something that can initiate or causes the town to take a little step, and we can do something locally to say to the greater community at large, hey, this violence, let's start thinking about common sense solutions to stop some of this violence and the tragedy that happens day after day in this country, I think it's a good thing.
Mr. Franco.
Yes, thank you. While I still don't like the way this went down procedurally, the temperature went way down for me once I understood that the Select Board is not being asked to endorse or adopt a proclamation or even the vigil itself. We're simply being asked to let it happen, if that's an accurate characterization.
It is.
You already independently addressed, but I may want to drill down on it just a little bit more.
Yep.
You independently addressed another concern I had. My antennae went up, my wall of separation antennae went up. When I heard vigil and people get, in the emotions of the moment and everything, and, so no religious flavor.
Correct.
Okay. And will there be speakers? Will any of those speakers be clergy, et cetera, et cetera?
I don't know if the clergy is speaking. We do have clergy involved that are part of the email list. I know
It's
that.
my understanding that
Go ahead, Paul.
in one of the meetings that we had, the clergy was saying they would not be speaking because we want to make sure that it's not religious. They're part of the planning, but not of the presentation.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, the presentations are going to be very short and brief. It's really just a gathering, hopefully just like a 30-minute event.
Okay, so also may I ask, no, these are maybe obvious questions, but I want them all on the record.
Okay.
No organized, led prayers, nothing, moments of
prayers.
silence are one thing.
No.
Okay, all right.
No.
Okay.
We do have politicians speaking, so I assume Dave's going to talk to them about trying to stay, again, away from it being anti-gun, if you will, Second Amendment issues or anything like that. But the idea is, again, can we stop the violence? Can we be watching out for each other? So the clergy specifically said they didn't want to be involved in any of that type of speaking and prayers or any of that stuff. No.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just say one thing?
Yeah.
I
Say
wanted
more.
to,
I said too much.
appreciate and respect your talking about the process and standing up for the process. And appreciate and respect everything you said. I'm a little moved. I know what you're talking about. And what you said and read into the record tonight about deaths against people who are not white was very important to include. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Sarakis. Ms. Wanda, any other comments? My final comments are, I'm not at all opposed to a vigil, and I'll tell you what my opinion was. I put it in the email that, I think, in my opinion, I know that I'm might be in the minority here on this viewpoint, but I don't see any conflict with someone going on social media and saying, let's get together tomorrow night at the center of town and let's have a vigil. And then let's coordinate that action with the town manager's office. I don't think that even needs to come before the select board. And I think in my email communication, I relayed that a vigil and being in the sense of people coming together to grieve and heal is a natural and normal process. And it's what people do. My concerns here were not about that. My concerns were about advertising for a resolution, my understanding at the time that it was a town event, and that it was a resolution or proclamation coming from the select board without any engagement with the select board. So that was my concern, not about the grieving process. And I know I communicated that via email, but I just want to restate, it's hard to be against a vigil. I don't know necessarily what vigils, I don't know how much healing our community needs to do. I don't know how much grieving our community really is in, as much as our community needs to be part of a solution that's part of a larger solution. But again, I said from my first statement, it's hard to be against a vigil. I'm certainly not against a vigil.
And I would just also say that these are really unusual times. What's normal anymore?
It's unusual.
Right, and this is a first for all of us in terms of the whole process, and I think we all learned something from this. I certainly did.
Yeah. I want to offer the town manager an opportunity. Any comments from the town manager and also members of the public tonight who would like to say anything?
I think it's nice that you all came together and to put this together. I think there's nothing nefarious, obviously, about this. It's all with good intentions. And if it brings members of the community together, I think that's all positive.
Mr. Chair, if I may just make one comment. I just want to say that, your thought that you expressed, I thought about as well, which is okay. So how does it affect Lunenburg? And I remember talking to some of the proponents saying this. I mean, obviously, if you're in Buffalo, if you're in Uvalde, if you're in one of the cities, Philadelphia, or whatever, it hits much closer to home. And I think maybe, just maybe, the concern is it hasn't happened here yet, and people hope and pray that it won't. And maybe an event like this can strengthen the bonds to maybe act as some kind of defense that it might not, that we can prevent something that may have already happened somewhere else and learn those lessons. Maybe that's what the event can be to some people. I know that's what I think it is to me. It's like we have those low numbers, and certainly on the black proportion of Massachusetts, as you pointed out, it's higher, and maybe we should look into that and try to restrict that, but try to keep those numbers low, along with Hawaii. Maybe that's it. Maybe a preventative kind of vigil is different than the ones that other people who have been directly affected are having.
Any other members of the public would like to speak
Thank
tonight?
you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good evening, Dave McDonald, Island Road. I just wanted to let you know, this is on me. I apologize if I did anything wrong, which I didn't think I did. You were on the emails right from the start. So, again, it's on me, and I apologize to the board if I did something wrong. The second thing is why? Why now? Why not? I've talked to a lot of people in this town that want to get together, not because of races, guns. They just want to get together and say, hey, we love you. We want to send a message out, and let it start right here, tonight, that we, Lunenburg, want to change. I don't want to see any more killing. And this one affected me, as well as a lot of my friends, as well as everybody here, I would assume. This is a tough one. This is a tough one for all of us to take. And I appreciate what you said, Heather. I wish you helped Tom write the resolution. All we want is, I don't want a resolution about violence, or I shouldn't say that, guns. I want a resolution about what you just said as a mother. That's what America's got to start doing. So thank you for that. And Todd, I appreciate everything you did. Always do. You're a great guy. And Lou, you're a lawyer. And that's what you just said. So I just want you to know, if you're going to do anything, I expect you to say exactly what you did. But let it be clear, I do not control what the clergy are going to say. I don't know. I don't know what the reps are going to say. But I would consider it an honor if all you show, I'm trying to think of the word, togetherness, and come to the visual and support our people. You've been elected by this town to lead. Well, God damn it, come and lead. That's what I say. Thank you very much, guys.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I address that? Mr. McDonald, I won't be in town on Friday. I just want to make that clear. I'm out of town. Going to Texas, actually. Okay. Okay.
I might as well chime in and add that I won't be in town either. Okay.
Ms. Lockwood.
I also have to lower this. It sounds, I got 6'3" coming before me. On the Lockwood, 91 Main Street. So, there are a few things, I appreciate that nobody's necessarily against a vigil, but there are a few things that I just want to bring it to, that kind of came to my mind as these discussions have come up. And I have to say, a lot more have come to my mind since I walked in here than I had before, because just like some other things in town, like I think some things are not going to be a big of a deal, and somehow we end up talking about it for a long time. It's like so obvious, because I always think about it as a community. First, I think, I do value the fact that I'm American now. And there are a lot of things that I value about it. I grew up under a military dictatorship, and I know what that's like. It's not fun. But I don't think that, Mr. Franco, we could necessarily be asking people here what kind of speech there will be in a public place. I just think that that's not something that this body should regulate or even question, just as a question of where we stand. freedom of speech. So I think, we got to be careful how far we go. We got to stay within our lane, recalling Mr. Jeffries earlier. Mr. Jeffries, you quoted yourself as saying, stop the brakes or put on the brakes, whatever.
I said pump the brakes.
Pump the brakes.
On the advertising.
So I wish you as the chairman of this board, before you next time say that to someone in town who's trying to organize something for the community, you ask more questions. Because I think if you would have maybe taken Mr. McDonald to the side and spoken with him, maybe you would have learned that was early in the process, and you could have seen that you didn't have to say that. And we could have come in here, not with our antennas raised or with so many concerns. So maybe next time ask more questions, because I think you're going to be put in this place quite a bit over the next year, how long you hold on to this position. And in terms of, interpretation of what is a town event, I think anything that comes from the community is a town event. It's not an official town event. It's not sanctioned by something, but this is a town event. It's being put on by citizens of the town. Not in an organized manner, but they are trying to organize it. And nothing's going to stop me from saying, hey, I want to get together in the town center for the visual of something. I mean, is this board really looking to start regulating people, the abilities to get together? I mean, that goes back into the American, that's not something we should do. So we got to be careful how far into this process, whatever process you might be referring, you're going into. I don't think there are town bylaws that regulates when people should get together or not. I can say that, maybe they could have come to parks to ask for, can we hold an event? And I don't think we'll be asking these questions. Just a thought. So, this is a town event because it is a town event. It's been put by the town community, by the people of town. Nothing more than we, the people. It is a town event. The other thing that, you said, and it's like, what is that this is going to do for us? There are a lot of people that have a lot of anxiety and anguish with this. And having a place that you can go and just know that you're not alone, that's very powerful, especially for people that are struggling. Especially the young people. They have a lot of anxieties that we don't know, they don't speak out, and you don't want to be that one guy or that one girl talking about it, showing concern about something that, maybe your friends are not. So having a vigil about something that it's of concern and having a public place that people can go for that is very, very important. That's very important for people's mental health, and it's very important for us as a community. So right there, it's a really good reason for that. And the other thing is, start the conversation. What could be more important than start the conversation about this? And that's how you spread the word. I mean, the American Revolution was all about starting the conversation. And let's go for that. So I think there's a lot of things, a lot of valuable things for the community here. And so anyway, so that's it. Thank you.
I want to thank you, Ms. Lockwood, for those comments. I will respond just to one of them, and that was the first one, just as a point of clarity. So, there were many conversations that were had prior to me sending that email. I did speak to several people who were on that conference call just to get a better understanding. And I think what we heard tonight just was not what I heard prior to sending that email. And had I have heard what I heard tonight, then I never would have sent an email. But I do appreciate that the conversation that we're having tonight has been had. And I hope that as we go forward, I think there's an opportunity here for us to take another look at how do we address these kinds of issues that come up in town. Because as I noted earlier, it's hard to be against a vigil. Vigils are natural responses to community trauma, and they're a natural healing process. It's what communities do. And our rules, I don't think, properly account for it. Of how do we do this, how do we organize this, how does this sort of thing happen. So work for us to do down the line. So with this, there's a request for us to make TC pass seals available at 6:30 p.m. Do we need a motion from the board, or is this within the authority of the town manager?
I think as it's been presented tonight, it's under the authority of the town manager. It's not a town-sponsored event. It's doesn't require a special event permit. So, but if you want to vote, I think it would send a message of endorsement.
All right.
If I may, Mr. Chair, it doesn't matter to me whether we vote on it or not, or the town manager who has just said that it's within her purview. I just want the people who are organizing this to have an answer tonight because they're holding back on advertising this, my understanding is. So whatever, if it comes from the board or it comes from the town manager, I'd just like them to understand publicly what the decision is so they can move forward.
So I would restate from my position, after obviously different people have been involved, the police chief, the superintendent, I don't see any issues with this moving forward.
Okay. Is the board interested in a vote on this?
Well, if I could just comment briefly on another
Yes.
matter. I just want to thank Ms. Lockwood for the thoughtful comments, very well articulated and presented thoughts. I appreciate that. I just want to also make clear, though, that my antennae went up when I thought we were being asked to make this a town-sponsored event.
Yes.
And that's where the difference is. I mean, the conversation that took place about the religious tenor of the thing was sort of, I was saying that you tamped down my concerns with that. They did that independently. Had it been an event we were being asked to endorse, or a vigil we were being asked to endorse, those would become extremely relevant points, because that would be a government action endorsing a quasi-religious event. And if you do that, that's exclusionary to people that don't particularly subscribe to a particular religion, or that particular religion that might be represented there, or any religion at all, and it would be a constitutional issue. So I just want to make that sure that line was clear. Once I realized we were not being asked to endorse this or call this a town event, that those concerns kind of evaporated.
It's an official town event. It is
That-
a town event.
Yes, it's a town event, an official, under the auspices of the town, or the auspices of the select board with our stamp. That's all. So
Not
I
a
think,
governmental town event.
yes, exactly. So I don't think we're on a different page on that. I just, so great discussion for beer at some point, but not right. That's it right now.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Heather, I want to thank you for what you just did, but I would really like a vote from the board, because I've had other boards in town that are waiting for the board's approval, which would be you. So I know, Heather, I thank you for doing this, and I know that's your responsibility, but a verbal from you guys would be great.
Well, Mr. Chair, for what it's worth, I would move that the board, if for whatever symbolism it provides, would authorize the use of TC Passios for the vigil of this coming Friday at 6:30.
Second.
All right, any other discussion, any other points of discussion on this? All right, as many as are in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, no. All right, the ayes have it, and the motion is adopted.
Was that an aye from yourself as well?
It was.
Oh, okay, all right.
They want these back? Like, I feel like they need to use them.
Come back here.
Yep. We're just going to give the room a second to clear out.
Mr. McDonald, do you think he wants these back? Collect them?
All right, the next thing on our agenda tonight, going back to our old business, select board designees to certain committees and liaison assignments.
That's a long title.
I don't understand.
All right, so this should be pretty quick for us tonight. Let's start with the stuff that we, all right. So last week, several members So we're just going to walk through our committee liaison assignments that we have. So the first one, let me start from the bottom and work my way up.
There you
I
go.
think that may be a little easier. Middle high school civic classes. This is something that Mr. Franco and I have been working on. I think both of us expressed interest in remaining. Is there any desire to change this? Okay. For senior tax relief group, Mr. Franco and Mr. Alonso both have expressed interest in remaining. Any desire to change? Lindbergh Municipal Building Design Committee, I've requested to remain on this. Any desire for this to change?
No.
School Committee, Mr. Franco has requested to come off of this, and Heather Schroka has requested to come on to this. Any objections to that?
No objection.
Planning Board, Mr. Dwyer has requested to remain on this. Any changes to this? For Open Space Ad Hoc Committee, I don't remember, Mr. Franco, your interest here.
I will stay on that.
All right. Any desire to add anyone to this or change? I'm going to skip over the MRPC, MJTC, MMPO, and go to MART. I've requested to remain on to MART. Let me actually double check myself here. No, MART meets during the day. I can't do MART. That's right. I've requested to come off of MART. Is there anyone that would like to join the MART board?
When does it meet again?
I have to pull it up, but it's a weekday.
A weekday during the day?
During the day.
So I can do that.
All right. Library trustees, I'm the liaison. I've requested to remain on. Any desire for this to change? Mr. Alonso is the Finance Committee is on the Finance Committee appointing committee. He has requested to remain as our representative on that committee. Any request for that to change? Finance Committee, Mr. Alonso is our liaison for the Finance Committee. Any request, he's requested to remain on. Any request for that to change? Mr. Franco is on the Economic Development Committee, is our ex officio. He's requested to remain on that.
Very Latin.
Any request to change? So I am listed as the liaison for the Council of Aging. I've asked to come off of that because of their meetings during the day. Mr. Franco has asked to come on, and I believe Heather also asked to come on as an alternate. Does that work for you guys?
I'll be the alternate, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Yep, that works.
Alternate. Capital Planning Committee, we have Mr. Alonso, and this is termed, isn't this, Mr.
Yes.
Alonso?
Yep.
So Mr. Alonso will remain. And then American with Disabilities Act Commission, we had our former member, Selectman Adams, remaining on this. She's requested not to renew, and so we're looking for someone to step up into this role. To note, this committee has not met in the last year. Thus, it's not heavy lifting.
I'll take that one.
Now it's going to get heavy.
Nice.
And that's a town manager appointment, so appointed.
All right. Wow. All right.
All right. So now we have MPO, MJTC, MRPC. What I would advise is that we should definitely fill MPO.
That's the other day one, right?
It is the other day one.
And it's like once a month?
Correct.
Okay, I will do that one.
So I want to note, Heather, you're picking up quite a bit here.
But they're during the day and once a month.
They are.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
I can do that.
MJTC, MRPC both meet at night. We are the alternates. The planning board is a primary for these. Do we have anyone that would like to be the alternate for either of these?
Not volunteering for any nights.
Okay. Vacant. I'll give you
Both
this one.
vacant?
Yes. Are you recording it?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
I should receive it real time. I think this.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Okay, so that wraps up our committee and liaison assignments. All right, annual appointments.
Can I
Yes.
do one note on, so the Finance Committee, appointing committee, will need to meet soon.
Who's going
because,
off?
So Peter Beardmore and Evan Waters are up for reappointment, both have
Okay.
applied, and there's one vacancy, so that's whenever we get applications for that
That's
one
for the town.
vacancy.
That's the moderator is the chair.
The
of that.
moderator and
There's a school committee member.
School committee member, which is still Carol.
I think it's Carol, yeah. So, but I think, so Mr. Murphy should be notified so he can
Mhm.
call the meeting.
Yes,
Yep.
I just wanted to let you know
Yep,
that's
fine.
forthcoming.
Okay. All right, excellent. Next on our agenda, we're going back to our appointments and reappointments. Part of me feels like we can wait till next week, but I think that these are all pretty straightforward. Let me just find my sheet here.
Motion to approve all of them. No.
I think we can do it in mass.
I said motion to approve all of
Are
them.
we allowed?
No.
And it's
Which
all
is why I
different-
laughed at the end.
It's all different terms, so I think we can't do them in mass.
Okay.
So we should do this by, I think it makes sense to do this by commission. So for the agricultural, if we go into our Google Drive, is maybe the best way to do this, and go into annual appointments.
I did look at
Where is it at, actually?
Yep,
It's not in my Google Drive.
should be.
Oh, no, mine isn't working. This one's not working. It hasn't picked up any of them. I took it home, it worked fine, and I brought it back, and
What
it's
it-
not working.
Is it,
Did it just now?
because it's
Yeah,
not
just
on,
now.
not
But
on the
no,
network?
No, I put it on the network. So I don't know.
Okay.
That upgrade you were talking about. Network upgrade, I was cracking up because it's just, nothing is showing up though, like nothing. They're all empty. They're none of it, nothing
Pass
was.
it down? Or just take a look while we're doing this?
Yeah.
All right, so when we go into annual
Get
appointments,
the IT support.
and then the annual appointment list,
I had reviewed everything though, so it's not like I was unaware of what was going on.
we'll just give this a sec for some technical support.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, Mr.
Yeah, let's
Chair.
just, I'm looking
We
at
have
the
the list
top.
up.
We're-
You guys
I'm
have it all?
keeping track. Yeah, we're
Okay,
good.
great. So if we can go by order, Agricultural Commission, and what may work is for there to be one motion to appoint the members, noting their names and the term to expire date. And that same motion can also note the associate member and their term to expire date. So are there any motions for the Agricultural Commission? I'll give a start on this one to simulate how we can do this.
So are all these people up for reappointment that are in here? There's four applicants.
Three-year term
Yes.
that expires June 30th. And then you want us to name the names.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll make a motion for the Agricultural Committee to Matthew Allison, Greg Burns, and Mary Ray Holman to the three-year term that expires on June 30th, 2025. And the two-year term for the associate member, Kira McKellen,
Easy for you to say.
to expire June 30th, 2024.
Second.
All right, any additional points of discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. All right.
Oh, so- And then we can skip the conservation. 'cause
I just
we
have
did-
to announce the appointment is confirmed.
Okay, sorry.
All right, Architectural Preservation District Commission, where we've moved this to the June 14th meeting. Conservation Commission, we've taken care of. Council of Aging. And we do have, if members are not aware, there was an additional request that came in earlier today. I'm just going to see if it's in the Google Drive or if it was in our email. And I think it was emailed to us earlier today.
So if I may ask, Mr. Chair, on the Council on Aging, I know that the Chair on the Council on Aging had requested, and I had brought it up at a prior meeting, that their cycle of when people were expiring was out of sync. Is this all addressed in this motion?
In the email
Oh,
that Elaine sent out today, and it was also endorsed by the Council on Aging Chair.
So,
What was proposed.
yep. So as we look at our email, we have Pete Lincoln, Susan O'Sullivan, Jane Rabbit, and Judith Tarbell, and they're all requesting to be appointed to a term ending on June 30th, 2025. And then for the term that ends in 2024, who was our person for that? I'm sorry. That one was James McGuigan. And that would be a term ending in 2024. Does that follow? Okay, and that way it gets them on the 4-3 cycle that they were looking for.
Excellent.
The 4-4-3.
443?
Yes.
Okay.
So the motion would be for the 4 members for the term ending 2025, and then the 1 member, James McGuigan, 2024.
Okay. I will make a motion for the Council on Aging to, what are you looking at? Oh, that's his name, okay. For Peter Lincoln, Susan O'Sullivan, Jane Rabbit, Judith Tarvell to be appointed to a term that expires on June 30th of 2025. And for James McGuigan to be on a term that expires on June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Any other discussion? As many as are in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. All right, the appointment passes for the Council of Aging. For the Green Communities Committee, we filled the vacancy tonight, and so the appointment is for Matt Snyder. Is there a motion for this appointment?
I move to approve Matt Snyder for a new term on the Green Communities Committee to expire June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Any additional discussion? As many as are in favor to the motion, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, no. The motion passes, and for the appointment to the Green Communities Committee. For the Historical Commission, we have a vacancy and no members requesting to be appointed. For the Personnel Committee, is there a motion for the Personnel Committee?
I move to approve Wendy Bertrand to a term to expire June 30th, 2025, and Joanna Bellotta Simeone, who's also term to be expired on June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Is there any additional discussion? As many as are in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes for the appointment to the Personnel Committee. For the Zoning Board of Appeals, 5-year term for 2 members. Is there a motion to appoint?
I move to appoint to the Zoning Board of Appeals, each for a term of 5 years, expiring June 30th, 2027. 2 members, Patrick Callahan and David Blatt.
Second.
Any other discussion? All right, as many as are in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes. The members are appointed. And to the ZBA associate members, 3-year term for 2 vacancies, 1 request.
I would move that we appoint to the ZBA associate member for a 3-year term to expire June 30th, 2025, Antonina Castro.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any additional points of discussion? As many as are in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes. The appointment to the ZBA associate members is confirmed. All right, excellent. That was all of our appointments and reappointments. All right, given that the time is now 10 o'clock, we are kind of wrapping up our meeting anyway. So next on our agenda is to review the annual calendar. So really what we're doing in your Google Drive tonight, what you have in here is and I'm looking for it.
Scheduled meeting topics.
There we go. Is the FY23 schedule of meeting topics. So what we're looking at is generally every year the town manager's office puts together kind of the annual outline. So I've made a couple modifications to this as well, and I will have to get this to you guys, my version with some color so certain things stand out. So what would be helpful tonight is if there's any dates as we look at this that we know that we are going to be out of town or on vacation or something, that we know something's coming up. Just so that way we can make some changes on this end as we plan out the year. I've also plugged in a couple of workshops that I just want to highlight. So here in June, since we have new member, I think it would be helpful for us to take another look at our policies and procedures and our guidebook that we have, and going through Articles 1 and 2. That would be a workshop at the end of the month. And then as we go into July, do we want to meet on July the 5th? That would be a difficult meeting for me to attend, but I can be here if it's an abbreviated meeting.
I cannot be here on July 19th.
Okay. Any conflict with the 5th? No.
I'll be around.
Okay.
I don't know about anybody else.
And you said you won't be here on the 19th? Okay. Anything that we know about in August? And the intent in August is that mid-August, the workshop that I noted here is Policies and Procedures, Article 3. These are our financial policies. And the intent here is that we're going to have a meeting with the auditors next week. That, you know, typically they all say the same thing, that we're looking great. But this is really just an opportunity for us to read through these policies to see if there's anything in here that we want to take another look at. All right, any conflicts with August that we're aware of? Any conflicts with September that we're aware of? Any conflicts with October we're aware of?
Now you're getting way ahead of my personal schedule, so.
We're too far gone now.
Far in advance.
Yep. All right. So the only thing that I noted special here is April of next year, because
April.
I know.
Oh, I'm out that month.
Yep.
No.
So April of next year, I just made a note that I'm looking to move our meeting from the third Tuesday, since it's school vacation week, to the fourth Tuesday, and then also noting that I will not be here at that last meeting. And that's why I noted.
You're gonna miss the ability to hear from our auditors, really? With the production number they'd put on, man, I can't believe you're gonna miss that.
All right. So this is gonna be a working document. I'm gonna try to make sure have it in here every few weeks so we can keep updating it and adding anything in here. All right. And that's gonna kind of be our guidebook as we go through the year, and as we think of things, just, you know, feel free to bring them up. All right, approval of the April 26, 2022 minutes. Have all members had the opportunity to read the minutes? And if so, any additional modifications, changes? I understand, Heather, you're going to have to abstain.
Yes.
All right, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Move that we approve the minutes of April 26, 2022 as written.
Second.
Any additional discussion on this? As many as are in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Abstentions?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. The minutes are approved. Do we have any warrants tonight? All right. While Heather's grabbing the warrants, I'm going to pass down the Unitil poll petition. Lou, you have a couple places you have to sign that the rest of us don't.
That's the clerk. Ooh.
All right, we have an accounts payable warrant in the amount of $879,438.71.
Let's go together.
Yes. We have accounts payable in the amount of $2,000. You know what this is for?
They're delivered right before our meeting, so I don't
Yep.
get to look at them.
BEMA scholarships. Got it. So, 2 scholarships for $1,000 each. Deductions in the amount of $38,231.91. And we have town payroll in the amount of $1,062,698.72. All right. Do we have any action items?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I have been notified by a resident that Lancaster Ave, in various sections of it, there have been streetlights that have been perpetually or consistently out. And as it is a kind of narrow road to begin with lots of deer crossings and winds and hills, that the resident wanted me to go. I said that we were in the process of purchasing them and having them on maintenance, but that transfer has not happened yet. So I said that I would bring that up to this board and to the town manager.
Could you give me that person's contact information so I can get the poll numbers? Because that's what we would need. so we're not getting.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they
charged
haven't,
in
I'm sure they haven't pulled over for the poll numbers, because when they see that they're out, it's probably the most dangerous time to pull over and find the polls, and probably not high on their list, but I will give you the
Yeah.
contact, yes.
Location.
All right. Any additional action items? All right. I have a couple. So the first is if we can send a letter to Brigadier General Norrie thanking him for his attendance at this year's Memorial Day event from the Select Board.
An excellent suggestion.
Are we in favor of this?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Would you like for me to prepare it, or you want to prepare
If you want to prepare it,
Okay.
or Lane would do it otherwise.
it? I'll prepare. And I'll send it to you. We already talked about this one. I am going to request that we have an executive session at the end of our next meeting. But I can't discuss why in too much detail. But there was a site visit. Basically, we're going to need to coordinate with the school committee on an important matter, but we have to discuss it initially in executive session. So there will be like a 5-minute executive session at the end of our next meeting.
Well, we're going to have to say what we're going to executive session for at the next meeting.
We will.
Oh, okay. We just can't say it now? Okay.
So, and then the other request is to send at next week's meeting, we're going to we have a workshop to discuss our goals. So the request from the board is if you'd like for me to send a townwide email soliciting recommendations from the members who are involved, from everyone who has a town email, for any recommendations from them, anything that they see that they'd like for us to tackle, if we want to do that or not.
Like a survey?
Not a survey, just a request, that if they want to offer a suggestion, that they can between now and next Tuesday.
I don't know how I feel about it.
So what precipitated it was actually some of the reappointment requests and seeing some of the things that they had said of needed, of services that they would like or things that they would need. And some of it had nothing to do with us, and I'm sure the town manager's office handled it, but certain things I think there may be applicable to us.
Insofar as I think it's great to get input from as many people as we can, since we're the ones who basically boil it down and choose our own goals.
Yeah.
I think it's fine. I just don't want to mislead people that somebody's going to say, well, you asked my opinion, then you didn't choose my thing as a goal, so why did I participate? I don't want that to happen either. So it's.
Well, we only pick typically 3 goals, and I think we have 2 already that we're going to keep working on. So
wait, would we be reviewing them as a group?
Yeah,
Or
I'll send them to you
suggestion?
guys, or however they come in.
Mhm.
The other part of that is also just to advise that the change in the agenda, just restating to members that they're always welcome to come and request time with us or come before us during public comments or after. Any objection to that?
Nope.
Okay. I'll work on that with the town manager, with the town manager's office. Do we have any committee reports?
I have one, although I'm not the liaison for it. So the town manager sent around a invitation that came to her office late regarding the personnel committee invitation to come and explain, the position of the 2 amendments on town meeting. Seeing as I was the one who proposed them, and I was free, I felt that I owed it to them, and they deserved a response. And so I was here last night for their meeting, where I explained my position as a member, not representative of the board, just representative of myself and why I made the motions. I thought it was a productive discussion. There was a lot of opinions that were expressed and feelings that were expressed from a lot of the members and also some of the SAP employees who were in attendance. But overall, I thought it was a good dialogue, so that there's not harboring any, kind of ill feelings. And, I wanted to address their questions and be able to answer them as candidly as I could. So I did.
Thank you, Mr. Alonso, for that. Any additional committee reports?
I have none.
All right. I have one. Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee met last night. We met for about 2 hours, and it was one of our maybe 2 hours and 20 minutes. It was one of our longer meetings, maybe a little less. So what we're trying to work on now are kind of, we're moving the conversation along. We're still in very much so in an ideation phase. But the conversation last night was focused on two parts. The first being how the committee believes that we should reprioritize the space requests. And that was part of the conversation. The other part of the discussion was on if, using Peter Beardmore's statement of if you're king for a day, what would you do? So we all got to be king for a day and lay out what we would like to do based on all the things that we know of what the ideal layout would be and how we would use the buildings. And some of it is to have kind of two conversations at once. So that way we can kind of see what a process is, but also use the knowledge we have and have kind of a constructive discussion. The intent being that at the next meeting, we're really going to kind of go back to all those ideas that were presented and start kind of tearing them apart to figure out the pros and cons of each. So and the intent here is that part of the mission of the Municipal Building Design Committee is to put forward a couple different viable options. And come back to this board with some of those options and different ways to move forward. So a couple things I'll highlight from that meeting on the how we reprioritize. There was a lot of variety of opinion on that. I think that generally the consensus was to preserve Town Hall, preserve Ritter Building. I think there was general consensus around that in terms of how we prioritize, continue focusing on the town administrative needs and school administrative needs. And there still is, I think, a lot of work to be done on everything else. And again, I'm giving a really rough summary here of that. And then the King for a Day proposals, those were really good ideas. But a couple things that came out, I'd say that the commonalities were reutilizing the Ritter Building for school administrative offices. That seemed to be a commonality that many of us shared. That building would be easily repurposed for that thing, and that this building would remain, second floor would remain basically as is. There seemed to be general consensus around that, and general consensus around the first floor of this building being available for community or meeting space. Some members felt as if we need to look at the 30 School Street property as a new location for a town hall, of a new build, administrative offices there. And the other perspective that maybe I brought to the table was that we may want to consider the future disposition of Turkey Hill, and that after walking through the school and being there, that it may make sense for us to explore tearing down the TC Passios, putting another school there, and converting Turkey Hill into municipal purposes. And there's legwork that needs to be done to figure out how to do it, but the couple reasons why I suggested that was I was given the opportunity to tour the school, and some of the hardships we ran into with TC Passios was the system upgrades with plumbing, with electrical, with HVAC, and that all those things required us to hit half the building, which then triggered $8 million in code upgrade requirements. Whereas Turkey Hill has already had a plumbing upgrade. They've already removed a lot of the asbestos on the first floor. They have their commercial kitchen is in excellent condition, and their roof also needs to get replaced in about a year or two from now, roughly. But for the most part, it was a building that the boiling systems in that building are relatively new. There's been a lot of resources poured into that building on behalf by John and Londa over the last 10 years to really get that building to last longer. And so looking at how we could go about converting it over, my thought on that was it would be an easier conversion, much easier than TC Passios, that it's segregated on that campus. I don't think that TC Passios is a good location for a future school. You'll never convince me it is. But I understand that many people cannot not see that as a school campus. And so, it may just make sense to tear it down and put a new school there. And then also in terms of one of the priorities we had all identified was minimizing transitional costs. That whatever we do, we want to minimize any temporary housing costs. And that solution would really minimize a lot of our temporary housing costs, because a lot of the programming could be temporarily relocated. So that was, I focused a little more on that because that was my idea. But again, there were a lot of ideas that were brought up, and I think at the next meeting, more will come about it, come from it. And I know the town manager is being supportive and trying to identify if what kind of restrictions we have through the Commonwealth regarding Turkey Hill, if there are any restrictions on that building that would prohibit us from building a new school. So just to kind of look into that stuff. So a lot more buildings at play here, but I think we all are kind of thinking, well, what's the future? And Turkey Hill is only 54 years old, roughly.
69.
Turkey
So yeah,
Hill.
53.
Yeah. So young building, and so it makes, compared to the other ones, it's not that old. So
How old is TCP?
74. Or I think it's 73 or 74. Yeah, because 2024 would be 75, and that's when we need special permissions to tear it down. So, yeah, 2 more years. All right, that's it. That's all I have for committee reports tonight. All right, our upcoming meeting schedule. We have a workshop scheduled for June the 14th to go over annual select board goals, and on June the 14th, that day. We also have, what's the event that's going on that day?
14th is the 55th anniversary of the Council of Aging.
Excellent. And so that is at noon, I believe?
At noon.
All right. And then on June the 16th, so that's the day of our next meeting, June the 16th, from 5:30 to 7 o'clock, we have the volunteer appreciation reception. And then on June the 21st, we have a workshop scheduled to review our select board policies and procedures, Articles 1 and 2. Any public comments tonight from the town manager?
I have no public comment. Thank you for asking.
Any from the public? All right, any from the board?
Is there anybody on Zoom, by the way?
It's 10:20. This is like a record meeting for us.
No, there's
Where
no
is
one on
the
Zoom.
where is the volunteer? The
It's
volunteer
at the
reception. Is
Eagle
it-
House.
Eagle House. Okay.
All right. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any additional discussion? As many as are in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
Abstain.
We are adjourned. Thank you. And it is
Recording stopped.
10:20. Have a good night.